Chapter 1307. To boil soup. On the side, Yi Jiming's expression turned a little ugly. She knew that Mengpo was afraid. However, this was normal. Who wouldn't be afraid after seeing this guy's bloodline and swords? It could be said that the stronger one was. The more they could sense the uniqueness of Yi Xian's bloodline, and the power of the two swords. The other was the cause of misfortune. Although this cause of misfortune represented misfortune, what did it mean to be able to survive with the cause of misfortune? It meant that someone was helping Yi Xian defend against the cause of misfortune. How strong must one be to defend against the cause of misfortune? Yi Xian didn't say, but Mengpa had her own thoughts. Mengpa slowly boiled the soup, thinking about something. Yi Xian blinked. Mengpa, aren't you going to kill me? Mengpa glanced at Yi Xian. Young master, aren't you going to use your blood and swords to tell me that you have someone behind you? Yi Xian bowed slightly. Senior, I can't beat you. Mengpa said. Don't worry, I can beat you, but I don't dare to. Both of them were very frank. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said. Senior disappeared for tens of thousands of years, and suddenly reappeared. You must have come for me. I wonder who dragged you here. Mengpa chuckled. Young master, why ask when you already know the answer? The woman with the fan. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Her revenge is too quick. Mengpa shook her head and sighed. Young master, you really shouldn't have interfered with the flower of the other shore. Yi Xian looked at Mengpa. I heard from knowing destiny that you are a deity, the protector of the Great Way rules. Someone of your status, why? Mengpa smiled. Because she has a higher status than me. Yi Xian was silent. Mengpa chuckled. Young master, don't worry, I won't do anything. Before coming here, I thought that Gongzi was just an ordinary person. So I wanted to do that person a favor, and form a good relationship with him, so that I could enter the doubting, and seek a better position. However, from the looks of it now, not only is young master not an ordinary person, but he also has so many backers. Although killing young master will form a good relationship with that person, it will also create a huge karma. This deal is not worth it. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Senior, since she wants to kill me, why didn't she come herself? Mengpa looked straight at Yi Xian. Because in her eyes, you don't have the right to make her come here personally. Yi Xian was speechless. Mengpa shook her head and said, Young master, you really shouldn't have interfered with the red spider lilies. Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior should know the ins and outs of that matter, right? Mengpa nodded. I can only say that they are unlucky. Yi Xian laughed. Bad luck? The willfulness of the strong is the fate of the weak. What a joke. Mengpa looked straight at Yi Xian. This is how the world is. Yi Xian looked straight at Mengpa. I heard from knowing destiny that you are the guardian of the Dharma of the Great Way. And the Great Way used to be fair. Shouldn't you be fair too? Otherwise, wouldn't you be smearing the name of the Great Way? Mengpa put down the wooden ladle in her hand, and looked at Yi Xian. Fair? Young master, do you think there is such a thing as fairness in this world? Yi Xian looked straight at Mengpa. You are the guardian of the Dharma of the Great Way. Mengpa chuckled. There is a saying in the secular world. When the emperor breaks the law, he will be punished the same as the common people. Young master, let me ask you, do you really think that the emperor breaks the law, and the common people are punished the same as the common people? Yi Xian was silent. Mengpa continued. The Dharma of the Great Way is just like the laws in the secular world. It is fair, but our world is very complicated. I have been brewing soup here for hundreds of thousands of years. According to the Dharma of the Great Way, anyone who comes here must drink this soup, forget their past life, and reincarnate. However, there are many exceptions, such as those with status and background. They don't need to drink the soup, and can reincarnate with their memories. This is unfair to many people. But so what? Because I have to give them face. If I don't give them face, they won't give me face. Today, I am a god, but tomorrow, I may be sweeping the floor. Yi Xian was silent. Mengpa continued. I am the guardian of the Dharma of the Great Way, but this doesn't mean that I can really act fairly. Of course, there are some who act fairly, such as my predecessor. She acted fairly, and didn't give face to anyone. Young master, do you know how she is now? She was stripped of her status as a god, and became an ordinary person. Then, she died 100,000 years ago. Ironically, after she came here, she hoped that I would let her not drink the soup and reincarnate for the sake of the past. Yi Xian said softly, I understand. The Dharma of the Great Way was fair, but people were selfish. It couldn't be said that people were selfish. It could only be said that people in this world often had to be flexible. If they didn't know how to be flexible, and didn't understand the ways of the world, they would be played by others. Righteousness? Selflessness? The human world wouldn't allow that. Moreover, even Yi Xian himself couldn't be truly selfless and fair. If he were to brew soup here and meet his friends from his past life, he would definitely go easy on them. The Great Way established order, but it was people who protected it. Mengpa continued. Just like now, under normal circumstances, I should let young master drink a bowl of soup. However, I won't force you to drink it, because if I do, there's a high chance that the people behind young master will take revenge on me in the future. As she spoke, she shook her head and smiled. Anyone can do good deeds, but if there's a price to pay, then no one will do it. And if there's a reward for doing bad deeds, then anyone will do it. Yi Xian was silent. Mengpa continued. Young master, why didn't you fear the enemy and save the red spider lily? Because young master has a strong enough trump card, so young master doesn't panic. But if I may ask, what if there's no one behind young master? Young master, do you still dare to help? As she spoke, she shook her head and smiled. Isn't it ironic? Even if you want to do good deeds, you need to have the strength. Just like in a certain world, you have to consider whether you can support someone who has fallen. Yi Xian said softly. I've thought things too simply. Mengpa smiled. Young master isn't thinking things too simply, but thinking of people too simply. Yi Xian shook his head. Senior, I think you're quibbling. Of course, what you said isn't without reason. But forgive me for being blunt. You have the authority given by the Great Way, but you can't be fair. What are you doing? You're betraying the Great Way. Since you can't do things fairly, then why do you want to maintain order in the Great Way? Of course, you have to understand the ways of the world, but this isn't an excuse for you to be biased. At the end of the day, you're just using the authority given by the Great Way for your own personal gain. As he spoke, he paused, then continued. Just like just now, Senior had already disappeared, but in order to curry favor with that mysterious woman, you didn't hesitate to appear and mess with me. Senior, what kind of behavior is this? It's a classic example of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. I don't think the Great Way is wrong. It's you who are protecting it that's wrong. Hearing this, Mengpo's eyes narrowed, murderous intent flashing in the depths of her eyes. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it! Isn't a gentleman using his mouth, not his fists? At that moment there was a sudden change. Mengpo's body suddenly trembled violently, and soon, countless tiny black dots of light appeared on her body. And these black dots of light began to slowly disperse in all directions. Yi Xian was struck dumb at the sight of this. Mengpo looked at her body in horror. No, no, no. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. What's wrong with her? Yi Jiming stared at Mengpa. The power of the Great Way in her body is disappearing. The Great Way is stripping her of her godly seat. Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. It can't be because of me, right? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. This is the first time I've realized that a mouth can be so powerful. You're a genius. Don't cultivate your sword in the future, cultivate your mouth. Your mouth is invincible. Yi Xian. At that moment, Mengpa suddenly roared. No, don't. Yi Xian and Yi Jiming looked at Mengpa. The black dots of light on Mengpo's body were dissipating rapidly. Mengpa suddenly looked at Yi Xian, her expression savage. It's you. It's you. Yi Xian hurriedly said. Mengpa, this has nothing to do with me. I don't know anything about the Great Way. Mengpa glared at Yi Xian, roaring. It's you who ruined my state of mind with your words, ruined my cultivation. It's you. It's you. Yi Xian hesitated, then said. If you want to say that, then ruin my state of mind and cultivation with your words. Come on. I won't resist, go ahead and scold me. Pfft. Yi Jiming suddenly burst out laughing. Ruin Yi Xian's state of mind and cultivation with words? She didn't think anyone could do that. Because this guy was shameless. You want to defeat a shameless person with words? That was a fool's dream. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mengpa flew into a rage. She was about to attack, but she found that she could no longer mobilize the power of the Great Way. At this moment, Mengpa was shocked. She hurriedly looked at Yi Xian. Young master, I already promised not to kill you. Why do you still want to harm me? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, Senior, I didn't want to harm you. I just discussed it with you. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. I don't think I harmed you, but the Great Way gave up on you. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Jiming. Right? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mengpa was stunned. The Great Way gave up on me. At this moment, a tiny black mark suddenly appeared between Mengpa's brows. And when it appeared, Mengpa's entire body went limp. Yi Xian looked at the black mark. This is? Yi Jiming said. The mark of a god. It contains the power of the Great Way. At this moment, the mark of a god suddenly flew in front of Yi Xian. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. What does it mean? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, slowly clenching his fists. What does it mean? Isn't it obvious? It wants you to become a god. Congratulations. You're now a real god. Chapter 1308. A fraud. Yi Xian was speechless. He looked at Mengpa in the distance. Mengpa lay limp on the ground. Her face was abnormally pale. She was completely different from before. Now, she looked like an old woman with one foot in the grave. Mengpa's gaze was dull as she murmured. Yi Xian was silent. He had never thought of targeting Mengpa. After all, she had no intention of killing him. However, he had never thought that she would be stripped of her god, just because of his words. This was too childish. Power came from the Grand Tao laws. This was given by the Grand Tao laws. And the Grand Tao laws could be taken back at any time. Thinking of this, Yi Xian had no more thoughts about the god's seal. The power that one cultivated was still the most reliable. At this moment, Mengpa suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. No wonder after tens of thousands of years of cultivation, my god's power has not improved at all. So it has long given up on me. Yi Xian looked at Mengpa. Mengpa smiled sadly. The funny thing is, I thought that everything I did was approved by it. At this point, she looked at Yi Xian. You're right. The Great Tao is fair. It's us, the guardians, who destroyed its fairness. As a result, many people in the world rebelled against the Tao and broke the Great Tao, causing chaos in the world. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Senior, all of your power comes from this god's seal? Mengpa looked at the god's seal and said softly. In our era, as long as we obtained the approval of the Grand Tao, we could obtain the god's seal. This god's seal could allow us to easily reach the self-release and Tao confirmation realm. Because the Tao is it can easily allow people to reach the self-release and Tao confirmation realm. What we cultivate is also this god's seal. The stronger it is, the stronger we will be. However, once it leaves, our strength will disappear along with it. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. Do you know why some people can break through the Tao? It's very simple. Because those who break through the Tao do not cultivate the god's seal. Their power is cultivated by themselves. They are not bound by the Grand Tao laws. Yi Xian looked at the god's seal. If I obtain it, can I directly prove my Tao? Mengpa looked at Yi Xian. Yes. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. Then let's not. He had to admit that he was a little tempted. But he didn't want to use this method to obtain power. Strength was given by others, and others could take it back. But the strength cultivated by oneself would always belong to oneself. Hearing that Yi Xian didn't want it, Mengpa frowned. Do you know what it is? That's the mark of a god. Once you obtain it, not only will you immediately become a god, but you'll also be able to obtain the power of a god's seed. With your current strength, you'll be able to reach Tao corroboration immediately. Yi Xian smiled and said, I don't want this kind of Tao verification. Mengpa stared at Yi Xian. Are you sure you want to give up? Yi Xian looked at the god's seal. You can go. I'm not the best choice for you. However, the god's seal didn't leave. Instead, it floated in front of Yi Xian and tried to enter the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Yi Xian's expression changed. Damn it, it's trying to force its way in? Yi Xian hurriedly used his sword intent to block the god's seal. But the god's seal didn't give up. It wanted to enter Yi Xian's body. Seeing this scene, Mengpo was dumbfounded. What was this? Back then, in order to obtain this god's seal, she had done so many things and begged so many times. But now, this god's seal wanted to follow Yi Xian of its own accord. Why was there such a huge gap between them? Seeing that the god's seal insisted on following him, Yi Xian frowned. What is this thing trying to do? Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming said solemnly, "It wants you to become a great Tao protector." Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't want this kind of power that can be taken back at any time. Of course, I don't want to boil soup here." Mengpo was speechless. Yi Jiming rolled his eyes at Yi Xian. "First, you can borrow this power. As long as you borrow it and don't rely on it, there won't be a problem. Second, the great Tao of this world has basically collapsed. After you obtain it, you don't need to boil soup here." Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. "If I become a great Tao protector, does that mean I'll be tainted by the great Tao's karma?" Yi Jiming nodded. "Yes. There are disadvantages and advantages. The advantage is that you stand on the side of the great Tao. If you want to prove your Tao in the future, it will be much easier. The disadvantage is that you'll be standing against those Tao defiants." Tao defiants. Yi Xian was a little surprised. "What are those?" Yi Jiming replied, "Those who can break through the Tao. They're called Tao defiants." Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. "Tao defiants? In other words, I'm standing against those Tao defiants." Yi Jiming continued, "Didn't you say that the great Tao isn't wrong? Since it isn't, then there's no need to avoid it. It's not a bad thing to be close to the great Tao. As for going against the Tao defiants, there are too few in this world who can break through the Tao." Yi Xian smiled. "Right, there's always a price to be paid for what you get." As he spoke, he withdrew his sword intent, and the god's seal entered the center of his forehead. Bang! In an instant, countless strands of mysterious energy started to converge towards Yi Xian. The energy of a god. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and his aura started to grow stronger and stronger. Power. At this moment, Yi Xian sensed the powerful energy within the god's seal, and he could immediately attain the Tao corroboration realm, if he wanted to. But he didn't do so. He didn't want to attain the Tao corroboration realm so easily. Yi Xian started to suppress the energy, and it didn't take long for the god's seal's power to be suppressed. He could use it or not. Yi Xian's body returned to normal. Yi Xian took a deep breath, and then looked at Yi Jiming. "I have to say, even I was a little tempted just now. That power is too tempting." Yi Jiming said indifferently, "You held back." Yi Xian nodded. "I don't want to become a slave to some power." As if he had thought of something, he asked again, "Jiming then Mu Sheng?" Yi Jiming said, "She's not a god, she's one of the great Tao." Yi Xian said solemnly, "How many great Tao are there?" Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. 3,000 great Tao. Do you think that's a joke?" Yi Xian blinked. "There are so many great Tao. In other words, there are strong and weak great Tao. Am I right?" Yi Jiming nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "What level is the great Tao that acknowledged me?" Yi Jiming said indifferently, "You'll have to ask Mengpa." Mengpa. Yi Xian turned to look at Mengpa, who said solemnly, "In the doubting, there are 4 types of gods: Ghost God, Human God, Empyrean God, and Tao God. Ghost God and Human God are of the same level, but Empyrean God and Tao God are different. They belong to the real gods, and they believe in the great Tao, the real great Tao, and they are very powerful. The mysterious woman that young master offended was an Empyrean God." Empyrean God. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and no one knew what he was thinking. Mengpa continued, "I work in the nether realm, so I'm also known as a ghost god. However, there are 3 types of ghost gods: first-class ghost gods, second-class ghost gods, and third-class ghost gods. I belong to the second-class ghost god, and my position in the nether realm isn't low, but it isn't particularly high either." Yi Xian said solemnly, "In other words, I'm also a second-class ghost god?" Mengpa nodded. "Yes. However, you can become stronger. There are 3,000 great Taos, and the great Tao cultivates on its own. Since it acknowledges you, it will become stronger as well if you become stronger. And if it becomes stronger, you will also become stronger. Although your strength belongs to it, other than cultivation, a god also needs to be worshipped, and a worshipped god is very terrifying. If you have many worshippers, your god's seal will evolve, and it may evolve from Xiao Dao to Great Dao. In that case, you may become an Empyrean god, or even the legendary Dao god. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then asked, the more worshippers, the stronger the god's seal, right? Mengpa nodded. Not only that, but the stronger the worshippers, the stronger the god's seal. To put it simply, if you have more than 10 Dao validation experts worshipping you, your god's seal will definitely reach the level of a third-class heavenly god, or even higher. At that time, your strength will become even stronger. Yi Xian suddenly said softly, if I can make Qing'er worship me. At this point he suddenly shivered. Holy shit, isn't this too exciting? Yi Jiming also heard Yi Xian's words and her face also twitched. The god's seal that the plain dress woman worshipped Yi Xian? She didn't dare to think about it. This is too crazy. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked again, can a person only have one god's seal in their lifetime? Mengpa shook her head. No, but most people only have one god's seal, because a great Dao can only choose one person. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Mengpa said solemnly, because a great Dao will not be willing to share its chosen person with others. If two great Daos choose one person, then the power of faith it receives will be weakened. So under normal circumstances, each person will have one Dao, and one Daoi person. Yi Xian was silent for a long time, then asked again, 3,000 great Daos. What is the most powerful Dao? Mengpa was silent for a long time, then said, it could be the legendary Dao of destiny. This Dao contains the supreme law, and all things in the world have their own destiny. If you obtain this Dao, you can control your own destiny, and the destiny of all living beings, but at this point, she didn't say anything else. Yi Xian asked, but what? Mengpa said solemnly, rumor has it that this Dao has been suppressed. Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Suppressed? Mengpa nodded. I don't know the details, but I do know that many great Daos were reversed, so much so that the Dao almost collapsed. Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Yi Jiming. Is Qing'er resisting some kind of great Dao? Yi Jiming was silent for a moment, then said, I don't know. Yi Xian was silent for a long time, then said softly, whatever. When I see Qing'er in the future, I'll ask her to worship me. I want to see how strong the god's seal that Qing'er worships is. Hee. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian with a strange expression. This guy can't really do that, right? If the plain-dressed woman believes in Yi Xian's god's cause. Chapter 1309. Yi Xian put away the god's seal and looked at Mengpa. At this moment, Mengpa was getting weaker and weaker. Yi Xian did not pity Mengpa. He did not forget that she was here to kill him. Mengpa looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Do it. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Senior, why do you think I want to kill you? Mengpa smiled. To prevent future troubles. Yi Xian thought for a moment. Then he said, just go. Mengpa narrowed her eyes. You won't kill me? Yi Xian nodded. I won't. Mengpa looked at Yi Xian. Aren't you afraid that I will come back for revenge? Yi Xian smiled. You didn't dare to touch me even at your peak. Will you now? Mengpa was silent. Yi Xian said, Mengpa, one last question. Do you know about the Yellow Springs holy water in the netherworld? Mengpa narrowed her eyes. You want the Yellow Springs holy water? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Mengpa said. You can't get it. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Mengpa said softly. The Yellow Springs holy water is very helpful to the soul. To the souls of the netherworld. The Yellow Springs holy water is a supreme divine item. It is guarded by the Lord of the netherworld. It is almost impossible for an outsider to get it. Yi Xian said. Isn't the Yellow Springs holy water used to repair the soul? Mengpa nodded. It is. No matter how damaged the soul is, the water can repair it. However, it can not only repair the soul, it can also strengthen it. If you can get a drop of the Yellow Springs holy water, it is no exaggeration to say that your soul will be strengthened by at least 10 times. 10 times. Yi Xian was moved. This was a little crazy. Mengpa laughed at herself. I have served the nether world for so many years. I have never seen the Yellow Spring's holy water, let alone obtained it. This kind of divine object, only the gods of the netherworld have the qualifications to obtain it. Yi Xian asked, where is the underworld river? Mengpa looked at Yi Xian. You want to steal it? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. No, I just want to borrow some. Granny Meng shook her head. The Yellow Spring's holy water is in Fengdu City of the Netherworld. And this city is guarded by the Lord of the Netherworld. If you dare to step into this city, he will immediately sense it because your physical body is still here. Fengdu City? Yi Xian asked softly. Is this Fengdu City the main city of the Netherworld? Mengpa nodded. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I understand. Mengpa suddenly said, You really won't kill me? Yi Xian looked at Mengpo and smiled. You may leave. Mengpa looked deeply at Yi Xian, then turned and left. After Mengpa left, Yi Jiming suddenly said, Just in case you should have killed her. Yi Xian chuckled. Jiming, I can kill her. But do you really think she doesn't have the ability to protect herself? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said softly, There is no fear in her eyes. If I'm not wrong, she definitely has a way to protect herself. Not to mention anything else. As long as she makes even the slightest movement, exposing us, we will not be able to bear the consequences. If I don't kill her, she won't be stupid enough to fight us to the death. Yi Jiming nodded. You've thought it through. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Jiming, do you still remember our bet? Hearing this, Yi Jiming suddenly flew into a rage. She glared at Yi Xian, wanting to hit him. Yi Xian smiled. What, you want to go back on your word? This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Yi Jiming was silent. Yi Xian laughed. I'm just joking with you. With that, he walked towards the river of forgetfulness. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly appeared in front of him. She tiptoed and kissed Yi Xian on the cheek, but the kiss soon broke off. At the same time, she retreated a few meters away, distancing herself from Yi Xian. Yi Xian was stunned on the spot. Really kissing? Yi Jiming looked coldly at Yi Xian. I lost the bet. Yi Xian was about to speak when the river of forgetfulness suddenly started trembling. And it didn't take long for a sword to emerge from within it. Soul-suppressing sword. Yi Jiming hurriedly said. Put the sword into the prism pagoda quickly. Yi Xian understood the gravity of the situation, and quickly put the soul-suppressing sword into the prism pagoda. Because the sword's aura was too strong. After putting the soul-suppressing sword into the prism pagoda, Yi Xian and Yi Jiming looked at the river of forgetfulness. At this time, the river of forgetfulness had been completely absorbed. At least tens of millions of ghosts. Yi Xian was a little shocked. This little soul's appetite is too big. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly said, Someone is coming. Hide. Yi Xian immediately brought Yi Jiming into the prism pagoda. And the prism pagoda concealed itself completely. As soon as the two disappeared, a soul suddenly appeared beside the river of forgetfulness. The soul glanced at the river of forgetfulness and frowned. How is this possible? A moment later, the soul turned around and disappeared. At this time, Yi Xian and Yi Jiming appeared on the scene. Yi Jiming said solemnly, The other party might have gone to report to the underworld. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Jiming, I want to make a trip to Fengdu City. Yi Jiming frowned slightly. To get the Yellow Spring's holy water? Yi Xian nodded. Yi Jiming stared at Yi Xian. Don't be too greedy. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. To be honest, the main reason I came to the underworld this time is to get the Yellow Spring's holy water. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. You're not proficient in the path of the soul. You didn't want the netherworld holy water to strengthen your soul. You wanted it to heal your injuries. But your soul is still intact. You came here for someone else. Yi Xian nodded. After a moment of silence, Yi Jiming suddenly looked at Yi Xian. You came for Mu Niannian. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Didn't you say that she was injured? For an expert of her level, it is impossible for her body to be injured. But her soul must have been injured. The Yellow Spring's holy water will definitely help her. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Before coming to the underworld, You asked me what kind of healing holy item I had. At that time, I was still a little doubtful, so this was your goal. And before you came here, you made a deal with Mu Sheng. If I am not wrong, you should have asked her to help you get the Yellow Springs holy water. And you saved Manju and her sister. The reason why you did not hesitate to offend that mysterious woman, sowing evil karma, is not only because of your compassion, but also because you want the Yellow Springs holy water. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. Saving the sisters is partly out of compassion, and partly out of selfishness. Yi Jiming frowned slightly. Why didn't you let her come and get it herself? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Sister Nian said that she does not want to provoke the experts of the underworld. I think the reason why she does not want to provoke the underworld is because of the fifth dimension. And because she is injured, she does not want to lick the boots of more opponents. Yi Jiming was so angry that he laughed. So you came to provoke them for her? Yi Xian. Yi Xian. Have you ever thought about who you are? Even she does not dare to provoke the underworld. So what right do you have to do it? Because you have a lot of backing? The underworld. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Do you know that you have backing? Do they care about your backing? And just now on the Yellow Springs path. Do you know that woman is a doubting? Not only is she a doubting, she is also a heavenly deity. That woman's identity is not simple. Just because you want the Yellow Springs holy water, you offended her, sowing evil karma. Aren't you very smart? How can you be so stupid at this moment? Yi Xian smiled. If there is something wrong with your soul, I will do the same. You. Yi Jiming stared at Yi Xian, angrily said. You want to trick me again? I will not believe you. Yi Xian chuckled. Jiming, do you know how much Sister Nian has done for me? Yi Jiming sneered. Jiming, do you know how much Sister Nian has done for me? She just wants to use you. That woman is not as good as you think she is. Not only her. I am also very bad. I also want to use you to fight against the power behind me. I am even worse than her. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Actually, I am also very bad. I am also using you. Yi Jiming was silent. Yi Xian walked in front of Yi Jiming and said seriously, Sister Nian has done too much for me. I want to help her a little. But now, I have to go to Fengdu City, the main city of the underworld. It is extremely dangerous. I can't bring you along. I have already made a deal with Mu Sheng. I will help her save someone. She will help me once and guarantee your safety. Now go back. She will take care of you in secret. After you leave, you can stay by her side and wait for me. As he spoke, he took out 2 Tao scriptures and placed them in Yi Jiming's hands. You are very concerned about Tao scriptures. Although I do not know why you are so concerned about Tao scriptures. I know you want these 2 Tao scriptures now. I am giving them to you. Yi Jiming did not receive the Tao scriptures. She looked at Yi Xian and sneered. Are you going to make arrangements for your funeral? Yi Xian smiled. I will be careful, you know, I do not do things without confidence. As he spoke he blinked. Jiming, can you tell me who you are? Yi Jiming was expressionless. Aren't you very good at guessing? Why don't you guess? Yi Xian shook his head. You know too many things. You give me the feeling that there is nothing you do not know. There is nothing you do not know. So I can't guess. Yi Jiming looked at the 2 Tao scriptures, not saying a word. Yi Xian smiled and said, These 2 Taoist scriptures are now yours. As he finished speaking, he turned and left. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, I will go with you. Yi Xian shook his head. No, I. Yi Jiming appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian coldly. You don't agree, right? I will inform the underworld now. You will fall short at the last moment. Do you want to try? Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. Why are you like this? Yi Jiming looked straight at Yi Xian. I will go with you. Yi Xian said solemnly. Knowing destiny, it is very dangerous. Yi Jiming was expressionless. Don't worry. I will not die even if you die. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Yi Jiming suddenly said, Without my help, you will not get the Yellow Springs holy water, or should I say, you will die the moment you enter Fengdu City. Yi Xian frowned. Why? Yi Jiming sneered. I am not telling you. Yi Xian. Yi Jiming suddenly threw the 2 Tao scriptures to Yi Xian. She glared at Yi Xian. Also, don't play with me, don't play tricks with me, I will not fall for it. As she finished speaking, she turned and left. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. What a silly girl. But his heart felt warm. End of this chapter. Chapter 13:10. Along the way, Yi Jiming was expressionless and silent. Clearly she was still angry. But Yi Xian couldn't understand why she was angry. Yi Xian walked to Yi Jiming's side and Yi Jiming glared at him. Stay away from me. Yi Xian said seriously. Jiming, I actually want you to come with me to Fengdu, because without you, I'm blind in the nether world. But I'm afraid I'll implicate you. Yi Jiming looked into the distance, her eyes solemn. The nether world is dangerous beyond your imagination. I can only say that Mu Xing doesn't have good intentions. Don't think that you tricked her. At her level, her intelligence can't be low. While you're using her, you don't know that she's also using you. Yi Xian nodded. I know. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. You know, but you still came. Yi Xian smiled. I want the Yellow Springs holy water. Yi Jiming sighed. His heart was filled with complicated emotions. This guy in front of him was usually smart, but he would do stupid things at times. Yi Xian was about to speak when he suddenly froze. In the next moment, he and Yi Jiming disappeared. Inside the prison pagoda, the two looked at the soul-quelling sword in the first floor, their eyes filled with shock. The shape of the soul-suppressing sword in front of him had already changed. Now the soul-suppressing sword was completely black, as if it was condensed from black ink. And the powerful soul aura it emitted made even Yi Xian's expression change. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming said solemnly, I'm afraid this sword is about to reach the legendary Dao-proving realm. Dao-proving realm? Yi Xian was shocked. You mean, little soul is going to prove her Dao? Yi Jiming nodded. All living things in the world can prove their Dao. Your sword has absorbed too many vengeful spirits, and many of those vengeful spirits are super cultivators. It has absorbed their memories and power. Of course, whether or not it can achieve Dao will depend on its own luck. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Knowing destiny, have you ever seen a divine object that can prove Tao? Yi Jiming said calmly. The fan in the mysterious woman's hand, is it? Yi Xian took out the green-robed man's sword. What rank is this? Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. This sword has no realm. There was no realm. Yi Xian said softly. I understand. These swords were not within the realm. Just like their master, they were not restricted by the realm. In this world, there were two kinds of experts. The experts of the Dao canon, and those outside of it. The green-robed man had no realm, and neither did the Qing'er. Those without realms were the most ferocious. Yi Jiming looked at the soul-suppressing sword. Give her some time. If nothing goes wrong, she should be able to prove her Dao. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. I haven't even reached Dao validation yet. At this point he looked at Yi Jiming. I can also absorb Death Qi and Yin Qi. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Don't even think about it. The Death Qi and Yin Qi here are equivalent to the spiritual Qi in the world of the living. If you absorb them, you will definitely alarm the super experts here. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and shook his head. I suddenly realized that you are very effective against the underworld. This sword is extremely effective against the soul. It can be said that if the self-release realm experts here fight you, they won't even be able to fight back. Moreover, you are like a fish in water here. Although the spiritual Qi here is sparse, your body can absorb Yin Qi and Death Qi. It can be said that apart from the few heavenly god-level experts here, ordinary experts can't do anything to you. Yi Xian nodded. Actually, he also wanted to absorb the Yin Qi and Death Qi here. This chapter is not finished, please continue. Because if he absorbed both the Death Qi and Yin Qi in the netherworld, he might be able to directly prove his Dao. Unfortunately, he couldn't do that for now. A moment later, Yi Xian and Yi Jiming left the World Prison Pagoda. The two continued forward. The two did not choose to fly. Flying in this place was akin to courting death. Just as they walked out of the Bridge of Helplessness, Yi Xian saw a platform. On the platform, there was a bronze mirror. Yi Xian blinked. Jiming, is that bronze mirror a treasure? Yi Jiming glared at Yi Xian. Treasure your head. That's the home viewing platform. Yi Xian frowned. Home viewing platform? Yi Jiming nodded. It said that this home viewing platform was built by a bodhisattva of the Buddha realm to let the deceased put down their loved ones. On the home viewing platform, one can take one last look at one's hometown and loved ones. This is the last look. After this look, everything from the previous life will disappear like smoke. Yi Xian was curious. Is it really possible? Yi Jiming nodded. It used to be possible, but I don't know now. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Do you want to try? Yi Jiming replied indifferently. You can try if you want. Yi Xian chuckled. Then let's try. With that, he stepped onto the home viewing platform. No movement. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Looks like it won't work. Yi Jiming said. Try using your dermic powers. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Then, he channeled his dermic powers into the bronze mirror. Soon the bronze mirror trembled violently. Then an image appeared on the bronze mirror. Seeing this image, Yi Xian was stunned. Ching ching. Soon, he saw the Yi clan in the bronze mirror. At this time, the Yi clan had already declined, and the clan was extremely deserted. There were only a dozen or so people left, and among these dozen or so people, he saw a familiar face, an old man. The old man who had once bullied him. This old man was not dead yet, but he was already old and senile. Yi Xian said softly. In other words, it's stronger than the underworld now. Yi Jiming nodded. You can say that. However, the premise is that the bodhisattva and that person from the underworld don't interfere. If they interfere, other than the top 2 or 3 forces, no other force can stand against the underworld. Saying this, she glanced at Yi Xian. Of course, other than you, the powerful second generation. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming said again. I know you're going to ask me which bodhisattva and person I am, right? Yi Xian nodded and smiled. Jiming knows me best. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. The bodhisattva is the Nanzang bodhisattva of the Buddhist realm. He's a very powerful bodhisattva. He could have become a Buddha, but he didn't. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Yi Jiming said softly. Because he once made a vow that he would not become a Buddha until all the evil spirits in hell are gone. Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Isn't that a little difficult? Yi Jiming nodded. It's not just a little difficult. Look, even now, the Tendo has collapsed and the evil spirits are still increasing. Yi Xian suddenly said. If I destroy the realm of ultimate bliss, will this bodhisattva come after me? Yi Jiming sneered. What do you think? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Is he really that strong? Yi Jiming said calmly. He has already attained Tao at least tens of thousands of years ago. Moreover, his opponent was a protector of the Great Tao, which was the Great Tao of Expiation. This Great Tao of Expiation was ranked in the top 30 of the 3,000 Great Taos. He was a genuine heavenly god, and a top-notch one at that. The past lords of the underworld have been respectful to him. Even the doubting dare not offend him. Yi Xian said in a low voice. I'm starting to panic when you put it like that. Yi Jiming sneered. What's there to panic about? Aren't you good at fighting? Just beat him up. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming continued walking forward. Yi Xian hurriedly caught up with him and asked, Who's that person? Yi Jiming stopped and said in a low voice. A person who once broke through Tao and regretted it. He then imprisoned himself in the 18th level of hell, torturing himself for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. F***ck. He's that cruel to himself? End of this chapter. Chapter 13:11. Yi Jiming nodded. Indeed. Yi Xian asked. Do you know who it is? Yi Jiming shook his head. I don't. I only know that there's a taboo in the 18th level of hell. And that taboo is that mysterious person. Yi Xian asked again. What about the Lord of the Underworld? How strong is he? Yi Jiming replied softly. I don't know. The past lords of the underworld have always been very mysterious. And the current one is even more so. There's almost no information about him in the world of the living. Yi Xian frowned. Why so mysterious? Yi Jiming shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian fell silent. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. It's not without reason that Mu Ninian doesn't want to provoke the underworld. Of course, I believe that if the world knew of her strength, there wouldn't be many forces that would be willing to provoke her. Yi Xian asked in a low voice. Jiming, even you can't see Sister Nian's true strength? Yi Jiming shook his head. I can't. This Sister Nian of yours is too mysterious. Yi Xian nodded. She's too mysterious. Not only is she mysterious, but she also likes to act weak. Act weak. Hearing this, Yi Jiming's mouth twitched. That woman is a little scary. As the two spoke, they arrived at a mountain range. The mountain range was shrouded in yin qi, making it extremely eerie. Miserable shrieks could be heard from time to time. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Jiming. Jiming, this is? Yi Jiming looked at the mountain range before him with a solemn expression. This is the legendary Ferocious Dog Mountain Range. Yi Xian frowned. Ferocious Dog Mountain Range? Yi Jiming nodded. This Ferocious Dog Mountain Range is home to countless ferocious dogs from the Great Desolation era. These dogs are known as the ferocious hounds, and they often feed on souls. When they consume souls, they do not devour them immediately, but eat them bit by bit. Therefore, the souls they consume are worse than death. Yi Xian frowned. Their target is all souls? Yi Jiming shook his head. Not in the past. In the past, they only ate evil spirits, but now. Upon hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Now that the Great Tao had collapsed, these hyenas would probably not abide by the rules anymore. Yi Xian collected his thoughts. Are we going to take a detour? Yi Jiming shook his head. This is the shortest route to Fengdu City. If we were to take a detour, it would take at least a day. Yi Xian nodded. Then let's go. With that, Yi Xian and Yi Jiming entered the Ferocious Dog Ridge. As soon as they entered the Ferocious Dog Ridge, Yi Xian felt a piercingly cold air. At the same time, a ferocious dog suddenly appeared in front of them. Hyena. This hyena wasn't big, only a little bigger than an ordinary dog, but it exuded a fierce aura. Yi Xian looked at the hyena and said with a smile, It can't be that it wants to bite us, right? Yi Jiming said indifferently, This dog has a spirit. Not too far away, a pack of hyenas was chasing a woman. The woman was about 17 or 18 years old. She wore a white dress, her hair draped over her shoulders, and her face was pale. She was a female ghost. Seeing that the hyenas were about to catch up to the woman, Yi Xian suddenly put his fingers together, and a tiny wisp of sword energy pierced through the air. Very soon, that tiny wisp of sword energy directly appeared behind the woman, and the pack of hyenas retreated continuously, their eyes filled with fear. The hyenas glanced at Yi Xian and Yi Jiming, then turned and ran. Yi Xian looked at the woman not too far away. The woman was also looking at him, and Yi Jiming. Yi Xian sized up the woman. He had to admit that this female ghost was extremely beautiful. Her eyes were bright, and her teeth were white. She looked like someone who walked out of a painting. Yi Xian sighed in his heart. Are all the female ghosts of the nether world so beautiful? The woman floated in front of Yi Xian and Yi Jiming. She nodded slightly. Thank you. Yi Xian smiled. Miss, you are? The woman replied. A yin spirit. Yi Xian sized up the woman. She was a soul, and her soul wasn't very strong. Could she really be an ordinary yin spirit? That didn't make sense. The women he met were usually very strong. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly said, Let's go. Yi Xian nodded. He and Yi Jiming left, but before they could take 2 steps, they suddenly turned around. The woman was following them. It's them. Yi Jiming frowned. What are you doing? The woman pointed in the distance. You're going to Fengdu? Yi Xian blinked. No, we're not going to Fengdu. The woman shook her head. There's a ghost revealing mirror in Fengdu City. If you go like this, you'll be seen by it. Yi Xian frowned. You know we're not souls? The woman nodded. You have the aura of the Yang world on you. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Jiming. Did Mu Sheng's technique to conceal our aura from the Yang realm lose its effect? Yi Jiming shook his head. It didn't. Hearing that, Yi Xian's expression changed. He looked at the woman not far away. Who are you? The woman suddenly floated in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian. Take me away. Yi Xian was stunned on the spot. Yi Jiming looked at the woman in front of him. No one knew what he was thinking. The woman said again, Take me away. Yi Xian tugged at Yi Jiming. Jiming, Open your heavenly eye and look at her. Yi Jiming stared at the woman. I can't see through her. She's either an ordinary soul, or she's at the same level as Mu Ninian. Yi Xian fell silent. It's most likely the second. The woman was still looking at Yi Xian. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Why are you following me? The woman said softly, I want to leave this place. Yi Xian was still confused. Then why did you choose me? The woman looked at Yi Xian. Maybe it's fate, or maybe it's a coincidence. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming suddenly said, Let's go. With that she pulled Yi Xian away. At this moment the woman suddenly said, The guardian of the great abyss. Perhaps this is a good karma. The guardian of the great abyss. Yi Jiming stopped, and turned to look at the woman. She suddenly put her fingers on her forehead. Heavenly eye open. Chi. Yi Jiming's forehead suddenly split open. Then, a beam of light enveloped the woman in the distance. The woman stood motionless, and did not resist. A moment later, Yi Jiming's eyes narrowed. You've revealed everything about yourself. The woman looked at Yi Jiming. Woman from the great abyss. I have no intention of harming him. On the contrary, I shouldn't have met him here. If I'm not wrong, it's because of the calamity caused on him. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Do you want her to follow? Yi Xian smiled. I'll listen to you. If you want her to follow, she'll follow. If you want her to not follow, she won't follow. Hearing this, Yi Jiming's expression softened. It was obvious that Yi Xian was on her side. Yi Jiming was silent as if thinking about something. Yi Xian looked at the woman. Who are you? The woman shook her head. A ghost. Yi Xian sighed in a low voice. Why can't I meet a normal woman? As he said this, he looked at Yi Jiming. I really don't want to fight anymore. I want to start a harem, and take all the women I meet. I believe that if I can do that, I can definitely rule over the heavens. At this moment the woman suddenly said, I'm a ghost. You can't even let ghosts go? Yi Jiming sneered. What's a ghost? He doesn't even want to let the heavens go. Also that Sansheng is a rock. Who knows, he might even have designs on a rock. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. I forgot to ask for votes yesterday. I feel like I've lost a few thousand monthly votes. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Chapter 13:12. Yi Xian was speechless. I was only joking. Yi Jiming seems to be very angry. At this moment, the woman not far away suddenly said, Let me follow you. I'll bring you to Fengdu City. Yi Jiming sneered. We can go without you. The woman looked at Yi Jiming. People of the Diyuan kingdom, you have an impure motive by following him. Why can't I follow him? Yi Jiming was expressionless. You should ask him. Then, she looked at Yi Xian. Are you going to let her follow us? Yi Xian quickly said. I told you. I'll listen to you. If you don't, I won't let her follow us. Yi Jiming looked at the woman with provocation. The woman thought for a moment and said, Let me guess. All of you probably have two objectives for coming here. The first is probably for the Tao scripture of legend, and the second is probably for the nether springs of the netherworld, right? Yi Xian's mouth twitched. Damn, is this woman a deity? Yi Jiming looked at the woman. Can you help us get the underworld holy water? The woman shook her head. No. Yi Jiming said indifferently. If you can't, then there's no need for you to follow us. The woman suddenly said. But I know the whereabouts of the Tao scripture. Tao scripture? Yi Xian looked at the woman. You know the whereabouts of the Tao scripture? The woman nodded. The fifth Tao scripture is in the underworld, and I know where it is. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. What do you want from me? The woman looked at Yi Xian. I just want to follow you for a period of time. After a period of time, if you can't satisfy me, I'll leave. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming, who was silent for a long time. Make your own decision. Yi Xian smiled. Let's go. Then he pulled Yi Jiming and left. This woman was too mysterious. He didn't want her to follow him. At this moment the woman suddenly said, We'll meet again. Yi Xian turned his head and glanced at the woman. The woman was also looking at him. There was an indescribable smile on her face. Seeing this, Yi Xian's heart was suddenly filled with anger. He turned around and walked in front of the woman. He looked her straight in the eye. Do you really want to follow me? The woman nodded. Yi Xian suddenly took out a drop of blood essence and passed it to the woman. Senior, do you know what bloodline this is? The woman looked at the bloodline. I don't know, but it's very strong. Yi Xian asked. Have you seen such a powerful bloodline before? The woman shook her head. No. Yi Xian then took out the green-robed man's sword. Senior, do you know what sword this is? The woman looked at the sword and was silent for a long time. It's not within the realm. Yi Xian nodded slightly. After that, he took out the sword of the banished Immortal Island's patriarch. Senior, look at this one. The woman looked at Yi Xian. What do you want to say? Yi Xian looked straight at the woman. You can see the calamity cause on me, right? The woman nodded. If you want to say something, you can say it directly. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. I don't mean anything else. Since Senior wants to follow me, then follow me. If Senior needs anything, you can tell me. I'll definitely do my best to help you. The woman said. I really do have a favor that I need your help with. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. Damn it. Does this woman know how to be polite? She really doesn't know how to be polite. The woman looked at Yi Xian. You said it. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. What favor? The woman said. There's a very powerful sword in your body. Can I enter it to recuperate? Don't worry. I won't ask for your help for free. I'll go in and recuperate. Soul-suppressing sword. Yi Xian knew that she was talking about soul-suppressing sword. So she took a liking to soul-suppressing sword. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming spoke softly. You decide. She didn't dare to interfere in Yi Xian's matters. It wasn't that she didn't want to, but she didn't dare. Because her intuition told her that if she forcefully interfered, then it wouldn't get better, and it would only get worse. After all, she didn't have Mu Nianyan's formidable strength. All she could do was let Yi Xian make his own choice. Yi Xian thought for a long time before he said, Then can you help me with something? The woman looked at Yi Xian. What? Yi Xian said. I want the Yellow Springs holy water. The woman pointed into the distance. Go straight from here, and you'll arrive at Fengdu City after 500 kilometers. The Yellow Springs River is in a forbidden area of Fengdu City. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. I want you to help me get the Yellow Springs holy water. The woman shook her head. I can't do that. Yi Xian frowned. Aren't you supposed to be very formidable? The woman spoke softly. Besides the Lord of the Underworld personally guarding the Yellow Springs River, there are at least 5 other Dao Validation Realm experts. Besides that, there's a super grand formation there. So long as something happens in Fengdu City, the ghost emperors of the underworld can immediately appear there. Yi Xian spoke solemnly. Is there a huge gap in strength between me and the Lord of the Underworld? The woman blinked and said, Haha. Yi Xian's face darkened. What do you mean by that? The woman thought for a moment and said, You should be able to fight a ghost emperor now. Yi Xian frowned slightly. I'm only qualified to fight a ghost emperor? The woman spoke indifferently. A ghost emperor is at least at the peak of the Dao Validation realm. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. The woman continued. Besides the ghost emperors of the underworld, there's also a king of the underworld who's in seclusion, 3 judges, and a king of hell who rules the 18 levels of hell. In short, there are many other experts. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The underworld was really cold, not a place for people to stay. Yi Xian looked around then said, Is there anyone who wants to leave a legacy? I'm very suitable. Yi Jiming, who had just entered, almost fainted when he heard this. So this was what this guy was planning. A Yin's expression was a little strange. Was it a mistake for him to follow this guy? This guy was too unreliable. Yi Xian didn't give up when there was no response, and he said again, Is there anyone who wants to leave a legacy? I'm not talented, but I'm the #1 genius in the Yang realm, the #1 swordsman, the #1 body cultivator. I'm invincible below first release, and I'm invincible above first release. Behind Yi Xian, Ayin suddenly said, I'm going out to calm down. With that she turned around and left. Yi Jiming said solemnly, I need to calm down as well. With that she turned around and left. When the 2 women reached the entrance of the temple suddenly trembled. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw this. Behind him, the two women suddenly stopped. Yi Jiming's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a trace of shock in them. She had the heavenly eye, and she'd looked around when she'd just entered. There was nothing here. But now it seemed that wasn't the case. Ain, who was beside her, had a trace of doubt in her eyes. She turned to look not far away, and said softly in her heart, "No way. You really took a fancy to this thick-skinned guy." At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly bowed respectfully. "Disciple greets master." Ain, Yi Jiming. Chapter 13:13. There were many times and many things that you had to try. How would you know if you didn't try? How would you know if you didn't try? In any case, you wouldn't die if you tried. As for shame, for Yi Xian, shame was of no use at all. The moment you chose to be shameless was the moment you rose in life. Right at this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The old man wore a black robe and held a black mirror in his hand. When the old man saw Yi Xian acknowledge him as his master, he hurriedly waved his hand. "Little brother, don't just bow to me." Yi Xian blinked. "Yes, master." The old man was slightly speechless. He was about to speak when he seemed to notice something, and he suddenly looked at the nearby Ain. Ain smiled slightly. There was a trace of shock in the old man's eyes. "It's you." Ain nodded. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "Who is she?" The old man hesitated for a moment, and then he looked at Ain. Ain smiled. "Don't worry about me. You two talk about your own matters." When he heard this, the old man understood and nodded. "Yes, yes." As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. As he looked at Yi Xian, his expression was slightly strange. "Little brother, you." Yi Xian hurriedly walked over to Ain's side. He smiled. "Miss Ain and I are good friends. Since Senior knows Miss Ain, then we're on the same side. It's fine if Senior doesn't want to give me the inheritance. Really, I don't like to force things." The old man glanced at Ain, and there was very little hesitation in his heart. He couldn't figure out the relationship between Yi Xian and Ain. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "Ain, we can't make things difficult for Senior. Let's go." As he spoke, he turned and left. "Ain." The corners of Ain's mouth twitched. The old man's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, "Little brother, please wait." Yi Xian turned around to gaze at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man hesitated for a moment before he said, "Young brother, you aren't Ain's spirit." Yi Xian said seriously, "Yes." The black-robed elder fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Ain. "Is this old man powerful?" Ain glanced at Yi Xian and was about to speak when the black-robed elder beside him suddenly said proudly, "The old man is the reincarnation king, the master of the Samsara temple. He is in charge of the cycle of life and death." Luanhui Wang. Yi Xian blinked, and then he said, "Senior is a heavenly god." The black-robed old man said proudly, "The old man is not only a god, but also a god with real power." Yi Xian was speechless. It turned out that the guardians of the great Tao were the same as those in the secular world. Their official titles were also divided into those with power and those without. Yi Xian restrained his thoughts and said, "Senior, have you perished?" The black-robed old man nodded with a downcast expression. "Yes. The reason I left a strand of my soul here was to find an inheritor to pass down the Tao of Samsara. Unfortunately, I haven't found a suitable candidate after so many years." Yi Xian hurriedly pointed at himself. "Senior, what do you think of me?" The black-robed old man glanced at Yi Xian, and then he hesitated for a moment before he said, "To be honest, you aren't very suitable. What I need is a very steady person. Because once you obtain the God seal of the Grand Tao of Samsara, you'll possess the ability to reincarnate. If the holder of the seal isn't steady enough, then it'll be a calamity for the people of the world." Yi Xian smiled. "Actually, Senior doesn't know that others only know that I'm boastful on the outside, but they don't know that I'm actually very mature and steady on the inside." The black-robed old man gazed at Yi Xian. "I can't tell." Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming suddenly said, "You've actually made up your mind, right?" The black-robed old man nodded, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. "Little brother, you're an extraordinary genius, but you really aren't suitable to wield the Grand Tao of Samsara. So, Yi Xian hurriedly said. Senior, how do you know that I can't if you don't let me try? The black-robed old man smiled bitterly. You can't try. A mysterious seal suddenly appeared on the center of Yi Xian's forehead. The god seal. A trace of surprise flashed through the black-robed old man's eyes. You, Yi Xian smiled. Senior, I'm a protector of the Grand Tao as well. The black-robed old man spoke solemnly. That's quite surprising to the old man. However, since you already possess a god seal, then it's even more impossible for you to wield the Grand Tao of Samsara. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? The black-robed old man said. Because a person can only protect a single Grand Tao. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he smiled. Fine. I won't force it. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to look at Ain and smiled. Let's go. Ain gazed at Yi Xian. Are you really not going to force it? Yi Xian smiled. I thought about it and decided not to. After all, I might become a Tao breaker in the future as well. A Tao breaker. Yin's eyes immediately narrowed, while the black-robed old man's face became slightly gloomy. A Tao breaker. That's their mortal enemy. Meanwhile, Yi Jiming spoke abruptly. I support you. With your natural talent, wouldn't it be extremely easy for you to break through the Tao in the future? As soon as she finished speaking, she pulled Yi Xian along and left. A protector of the Grand Tao? No. She hoped that Yi Xian would become a Tao breaker instead. The current doubting and the 3,000 Grand Taos were in chaos, and she didn't want Yi Xian to be swept into it. Granny Meng's god seal could only be considered as a Xiao Dao, but Luan Hui King's Tao wasn't a Xiao Dao. It was a true Grand Tao. Moreover, it was a Grand Tao with real power. Once Yi Xian obtained the inheritance of this Grand Tao, he would be completely swept into the disputes of the doubting, and he might even become the enemy of the Tao breakers. How did Luan Hui King die? Yi Xian didn't know, but she did. Luan Hui King had been beaten to death, and the current Tao of reincarnation had actually collapsed, and it wasn't a complete Tao. It wouldn't be entirely a good thing if Yi Xian accepted the inheritance of the Tao of reincarnation. Just as Yi Jiming was leaving with Yi Xian, Ain suddenly gazed at the black-robed old man. Perhaps you should consider it. The black-robed old man was in a difficult position. Ain chuckled. I really should consider it. Her smile was a little strange. The black-robed old man hurriedly said, Young brother, please wait. Yi Xian stopped and turned to look at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man spoke solemnly. Young brother, to tell you the truth, I knew as soon as I saw you that you're the person I've been waiting for many years. Yi Xian blinked. Senior, didn't you say that I'm not suitable? The black-robed old man smiled embarrassedly. Young brother, I think you're very suitable really. Yi Xian glanced at Ain and smiled. Senior, did you suddenly change your mind because of Miss Ain? The black-robed old man nodded. Yes. Yi Xian looked at Ain and smiled. Looks like Miss Ain isn't as simple as I thought. Ain chuckled. The Tao of reincarnation is ranked in the top 10 of the 3,000 great Taos. Although it's not a complete great Tao, it's at least in the top 30. If you obtain the inheritance of the great Tao of reincarnation and become the guardian of the great Tao of reincarnation, you'll obtain the art of reincarnation, and you'll be able to control the great Tao of reincarnation with a Yang realm body. To put it simply, as long as you're strong enough, you can send a Tao vindication expert into the reincarnation cycle with just a word. Moreover, you can choose whether to send him into the evil or good path. Yi Xian fell silent. Ain looked at the black-robed old man. Don't feel wronged. He inherits the great Tao of reincarnation, and he won't disgrace it. If you don't believe me, you can release the mark of God and let him make his own choice. The black-robed old man hesitated, and then he silently chanted. Soon, a mark floated out from between his brows. The mark of God. Yi Xian noticed that it was a red mark of God, different from Meng Po's. Meng Po's mark of God was blue. Obviously, the level was different. After the mark of God appeared, it suddenly appeared on top of Yi Xian's head. The next moment, a red light directly enveloped Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned. This is? Ain smiled. It's observing you. After a moment, the mark of God suddenly trembled, and the red light gradually moved away from Yi Xian. Beside him, the black-robed old man said softly, "It seems that little brother is not suitable." At this moment, the mark of God suddenly turned into a red light and entered Yi Xian's body. Seeing this scene, the black-robed old man was stunned. Isn't he not suitable? How? Yi Xian was also a little confused. Just now, he felt the rejection of the mark of God, but he didn't expect it to directly choose him. What was going on? Beside him, Ain suddenly said, "Not suitable doesn't mean everything." The black-robed old man looked at Ain, and Ain smiled. Just like in the secular world many times, two people are indeed not suitable for each other. But not suitable doesn't mean they can't be together again. The black-robed old man frowned. I don't understand." Beside him, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "It's like a marriage of mutual benefit. For mutual benefit, everyone can be together." Saying so, she looked at Yi Xian. Although he is not suitable for the reincarnation Tao, the reincarnation Tao has chosen him, which means that the reincarnation Tao has chosen him to use him. "Yi Xian," Yi Jiming said again, "you can also use it." Beside him, the black-robed old man smiled bitterly. "It's very complicated." Ain looked at the black-robed old man. "No matter what, the reincarnation Tao has made its own choice. You can go in peace." The black-robed old man bowed slightly to Ain. "Take care of yourself." As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian. "Little brother, no matter what, you're the protector of the reincarnation Tao now. Even though you haven't been conferred a title by the doubting, you already have real authority. Remember, enter the reincarnation Tao. Don't let a good person enter the path of evil, and don't let an evil person enter the path of kindness." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "I'll be careful." The black-robed old man nodded, and then his figure gradually became ethereal. Suddenly he seemed to have thought of something, and he said, "Little brother, I have a presumptuous request." Yi Xian said, "Senior, please speak." The black-robed old man said, "I was killed all those years ago, and I wasn't able to enter the reincarnation Tao. But this strand of my soul can enter the reincarnation Tao to be reborn. Help me. Right. I want to enter the reincarnation Tao of kindness." Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 13-14. All of them had strange expressions on their faces. Yi Xian was speechless as well. This fellow had helped others reincarnate countless times, and now he wanted someone else to help him reincarnate, and he even emphasized that he should enter the virtuous path of reincarnation. Yi Xian thought about it and said, "Senior, what should I do?" The old man nodded. "Summon the seal of samsara." Yi Xian nodded and summoned the samsara divine seal. The black-robed old man looked at the samsara divine seal, with a complicated look in his eyes. "Farewell, old friend." He looked at Yi Xian. "Activate its power, and open the virtuous path of reincarnation." Yi Xian nodded. He tried to sense the samsara divine seal. Very soon, the samsara divine seal began to tremble slowly. Suddenly, the samsara divine seal erupted with a brilliant green light. The green light was like a door standing in front of everyone. The virtuous path. The old man looked at Yi Xian. "You have to use the power of the seal more often. As for how to use it, you can ask Senior Yin next to you." After saying that, he directly jumped into the door. Bang! The black-robed old man disappeared. Yi Xian put away the seal of samsara, and then he looked at Ain. "Has he reincarnated?" Ain nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian asked solemnly, "Does he still have his memories?" Ain shook his head. "No." Yi Xian frowned. "But I remember that he didn't drink Granny Meng's soup." Ain chuckled. "Because his main soul has shattered, and only a strand of his soul is left. Whether this strand of soul can successfully reincarnate is a problem, let alone carry his memories." Yi Xian said solemnly, "If a friend by my side perishes, can I let them use the seal of samsara to reincarnate?" Ain looked at Yi Xian. "In theory, yes, but I advise you not to do that." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" Ain smiled and said, "This thing controls the order of reincarnation, and it is particular about fairness and justice. If you use it for yourself, it will leave you. Moreover, even if you want to use it in this way, your friends must die a normal death. To put it simply, don't let their souls be destroyed." If their souls are destroyed or erased, then they won't be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Ayin nodded slightly. Do you want to learn how to control the samsara seal now? Yi Xian laughed and said, Of course. Ayin nodded. Then we'll stay here for half a day. Half a day should be enough for you. Yi Xian smiled and said, Thank you very much. Then he sat cross-legged on the ground. At this time, Ayin pointed at the space between Yi Xian's brows. Soon, countless information flowed into Yi Xian's brain. Reincarnation Divine Art. This Reincarnation Divine Art originated from the Reincarnation Great Tao. It was one of the 3,000 Tao techniques, and belonged to the category of supernatural powers. Therefore, it could not be compared to Tao scriptures and martial arts. However, Yi Xian discovered that this Reincarnation Divine Art was truly heaven-defying. It had 3 major uses. The first was that the Reincarnation Great Tao could directly help him reach the peak of the Tao validation realm. The second was that he could use the Reincarnation Divine Art to open the good and evil reincarnation path. Once this art was used, even a Tao validation expert would not be able to resist it. Of course, this depended on one's own strength. If one was strong enough, this Reincarnation Divine Art had almost no limit. In theory, anyone could be sent to the evil path of samsara. However, this was not possible now, because the Reincarnation Great Tao had collapsed. The Reincarnation Great Tao's spirit was actually in a deep sleep, because it had been seriously injured. Although it did not die directly, it had fallen into a deep sleep. Now, the Reincarnation Divine Art was only left with its instinctive consciousness. Its true spiritual intelligence was still in a deep sleep. Although the reincarnation spirit was in a deep slumber, its usefulness could not be underestimated. The Reincarnation Divine Art was not something that an ordinary person could block. This was especially true against spirits, as it had an innate restraining effect. It could be said that the power of the Reincarnation Divine Art had increased by at least several times in the face of this Reincarnation Divine Art. The third use was immunity. He was immune to all Reincarnation Divine Arts and martial arts. No Reincarnation Divine Art had any effect on him. Yi Xian still did not use the Reincarnation Divine Art to reach the Tao validation realm. He did not want to use this method to reach the Tao validation realm. This was because the Reincarnation Divine Art was a true external object. If he used it to reach the Tao validation realm, and the Reincarnation Divine Art left him in the future, then his own strength would also disappear. At that time, it would be a real pain in the ass. Therefore, he would use the Reincarnation Divine Art, but he would not rely on it. While Yi Xian was cultivating, Yi Jiming walked out of the hall and sat on the stone steps. She rested her chin on her hands and looked up at the gloomy sky. No one knew what she was thinking about. At this moment, Ayin suddenly walked to Yi Jiming's side and sat down. She smiled. Da you in person, you are very wary of me. Yi Jiming said indifferently. I am not wary of you really, because I know that you do not have the ability to harm him. She paused, then added, I do not have that ability either. Ayin chuckled. You mean the person behind him? Yi Jiming nodded. Ayin smiled but did not speak. Yi Jiming looked at Ayin. You are not simple to be able to hide from my third eye. Ayin smiled. That is because your strength has not fully recovered. Otherwise, I would not be able to hide from you. Yi Jiming said in a low voice. Why are you following him? Ayin asked. What about you? Yi Jiming said indifferently. You should have guessed it. Ayin nodded. Tao scripture. You want to follow him to find the Tao scripture? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. Ayin said softly, Tao scripture. Yi Jiming said. There is a Tao scripture on you, right? Ayin smiled. You guessed it wrong. That Tao scripture is useless to me. No, I should say, unless it is the complete version of Tao scripture, it is not of much use to me. The complete version of Tao scripture. Yi Jiming said softly. I wonder if there is any hope of collecting all the Tao scriptures. Ayin said. The people of the world of the living are fighting for the Tao scripture. Yi Jiming nodded. Many. Ayin chuckled. I received news that the Tao stone is in his hands, right? Yi Jiming looked straight at Ayin. So, you are here for the Tao stone. Ayin smiled. Don't misunderstand. Sansheng is a very good friend of mine. Yi Jiming was silent. Ain turned to look then said, I thought Sansheng had followed him here. But I did not expect that. However, I am even more curious about him. For a person with the cause of disaster to be able to survive until now, how strong must the Tao protector behind him be? Saying this, she looked at Yi Jiming. I know that there is a person in the world of the living who is not simple. She is the fifth dimension Tendo. Have you seen her? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. Ain smiled. How strong is she? Yi Jiming shook his head. I don't know. Ain blinked. You can't tell. Yi Jiming nodded. That woman is very scary. Moon Yinyan was the scariest woman she had ever seen, be it in terms of strength or intelligence. Ain said softly. I really hope I can meet her. Yi Jiming looked at Ain. Who is the best fighter in the world of the dead now? Ain thought for a moment then said, You're giving me a hard time. Yi Jiming asked again. Who are the best fighters in the world of the dead now? Ain smiled. Now it's easy to answer. The first should be the Lord of the Dead. That person's strength had reached the legendary Tao Proving Realm tens of thousands of years ago. As for now, it's a mystery anyway. The second is that Nanzang Bodhisattva of Buddhism. This person has great faith, great wishes, and his Dharma cultivation is unfathomable. His strength is also a big mystery, because I haven't seen him fight for almost 10,000 years. The last time he fought was because of that calamity. Yi Jiming was silent for a moment then asked, No more? Ain continued. There are two more. One of them imprisoned himself in the 18 levels of hell, claiming that he will suffer the cruelest torture in the world until his life ends. Unfortunately, he still has at least 100,000 years to live. Chapter 13-15. Half a day later, Yi Xian walked out of the Samsara temple. He looked refreshed and his face was full of smiles. Yi Jiming and Ain looked at Yi Xian. Ain smiled. You succeeded? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Ain smiled. Congratulations, you have 2 types of divine seals. This is rare even in the doubting. Yi Xian whispered. Miss Ain, I heard you talk about the doubting before. What is this doubting? Ain smiled. It's a very powerful force. Everyone in it is the guardians of the great Tao. Yi Xian asked in a low voice. Am I considered a doubting now? Ain smiled. In theory, yes, because you are also a guardian of the great Tao. However, you must be conferred a title by the doubting to be considered a doubting. And I heard Miss Jiming say that you saved the red spider lily on the bridge of helplessness. Is that right? Yi Xian nodded. Ain said softly. Then you might not become a member of the Tao court. Yi Xian asked, that woman? Ain smiled. She's not an ordinary woman. She's of high status, and has an important position in the doubting. If she doesn't agree, no one will reject her. Yi Xian asked, Does Miss Ain know what she did? Ain nodded. Yes. Yi Xian shook his head. If the doubting are all like that, I won't join them even if they beg me. Ain looked at Yi Xian. That's not right. There are good people in every force, but there are also bad people. In the doubting, there are some with bad intentions, but there are also many who are just. Yi Xian smiled. That's true. But Lady Ain, did no one in the doubting stop her? Ain shook his head. No one will offend her for a mere flower spirit. She paused and looked at Yi Xian. Except for you. Yi Xian smiled. I don't know who she is. Ain chuckled. The cause of evil has been set, it cannot be changed. Yi Xian looked at Ain. Miss Ain, are you also a Tao protector? Ain shook his head. I'm not, but I'm in the doubting circle. Doubting? Yi Xian pondered for a moment before he said, Let's go. He didn't forget that he was here for the Yellow Spring holy water. The 3 continued on their way. On the way, Ain pointed into the distance. 100 li ahead is the Lotus Sacred Platform. Yi Xian was curious. Lotus Sacred Platform? Yi Jiming suddenly said, That's Nanzang Bodhisattva's place of worship. It specializes in releasing souls from purgatory. Nanzang Bodhisattva. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. He looked around and said, Why don't we take a detour? Ain looked at Yi Xian and smiled. I heard you destroyed the realm of pure bliss. Yi Xian blinked. Let's take a detour. Ain shook her head. If we take a detour from here, we'll have to cross Golden Chicken Mountain. It'll take more time to reach Fengdu City. She looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Don't worry about that Nanzang Bodhisattva. It's been a long time since Nanzang Bodhisattva has appeared to release souls from purgatory. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Ain spoke softly. The order of reincarnation has fallen into chaos. Coupled with the fact that not many souls have come to the netherworld, Nanzang Bodhisattva hasn't appeared to release souls from purgatory. So you don't have to worry about encountering him. She shook her head and smiled. In the past, countless souls wanted to encounter Nanzang Bodhisattva, because once they were released from purgatory by him, then no matter how great their sins were, they would be able to obtain reincarnation. Moreover, if they were fated to obtain the blessing of his dharma and form a good relationship with him, then their future in their next life would be limitless. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, Then let's not take a detour. He believed that he wouldn't be so unlucky. The three of them continued on their way, and it didn't take long for Yi Xian to see a lotus platform. It was 27 m tall and a few meters wide. There were a few meditation cushions before it, but they were covered in a thick layer of dust. Moreover, the lotus platform was covered in spiderwebs, and it was obvious that it hadn't been used in a long time. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings of the lotus platform, and it was completely desolate. Ain said softly, A very long time ago, this place was extremely prosperous and bustling, and it was one of the rare holy places in the netherworld. Unfortunately now, Yi Xian glanced at the lotus platform, and then he said, Let's go. Ain nodded. The three of them were about to leave when a ray of Buddhist light suddenly surged out from the lotus platform. The three of them were stunned by this scene. Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it! Am I really that unlucky? Right when Yi Xian was about to slip away, a monk in a golden kasaya suddenly appeared on the lotus platform, and there was a ray of holy Buddhist light behind the monk. Nanzang Bodhisattva. Yi Xian's expression was slightly unsightly. The Nanzang Bodhisattva before him felt like a vast starry sky, and it was unfathomable. If I were to fight him one-on-one, then it would be quite difficult. Yi Jiming's expression was also somewhat unsightly. This Yi Xian was too unlucky, wasn't he? How many years had it been since this Nanzang Bodhisattva appeared? And this guy appeared as soon as he came? Ain glanced at Nanzang Bodhisattva and didn't speak. Nanzang Bodhisattva looked at Yi Xian, and there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. The cause of calamity. Yi Xian was silent. He was thinking, should he fight or run? Or bluff? But this big monk didn't look like he could be bluffed. At this time, Ain suddenly put his palms together and smiled. Nanzang. Nanzang looked at Ain, and he smiled. You're here too. Ain nodded. Nanzang said softly, You. Ain smiled but didn't speak. Nanzang smiled. I won't ask any more. Ain said, Nanzang, did you sense something? Nanzang looked at Yi Xian. Spiritual insight. Are you a Buddhist disciple? Yi Xian smiled. Not really. Nanzang looked at Yi Xian. I heard that the realm of ultimate bliss was destroyed by a young man, and that young man had a deep relationship with the realm of ultimate bliss. Was it you? Yi Xian nodded. It was me. Nanzang smiled. Young man, why did you destroy the realm of ultimate bliss? Yi Xian said, The realm of ultimate bliss wanted to rob my study room and kill me. Nanzang sighed softly. Greed. Saying so, he looked at Yi Xian. I also felt the aura of Wu Wang on you. It seems that he didn't just pass on the Buddhist scriptures to you. He also passed on his Buddhist teachings to you. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Nanzang looked at Yi Xian. Don't you have anything you want to say to me? Yi Xian thought about it, and then said, Buddha said, revenge breeds revenge. When will it end? I think, let's just forget about this. Pfft. At the side, Yi Jiming suddenly couldn't help but laugh, but she felt that it was inappropriate, so she forcefully held it in. But it was really difficult to hold it in. At the side, Ain also shook her head. This guy destroyed the realm of ultimate bliss. But now he was telling others to forget about it. How could his skin be so thick? Nanzang looked at Yi Xian. For a moment he was speechless. It was very obvious that this was the first time he met such a person. At this time, Yi Xian said again, Nanzang Bodhisattva, Buddhism emphasizes fairness, is this right? Nanzang nodded. Yes. Yi Xian looked at Nanzang. When I was being bullied by the realm of ultimate bliss, why didn't Nanzang appear to stop them? Nanzang shook his head. I haven't interfered in the matters of the living world for a long time. Yi Xian asked again. Then why is Nanzang blaming me now? Is this fair? Nanzang looked at Yi Xian. You have killed a lot. Your sins are a little heavy. I can help you transcend. Yi Xian suddenly said. Nanzang Bodhisattva. Do you know about the red spider lily on the bridge of helplessness? Nanzang nodded. I do. Yi Xian smiled. She was innocently tortured for so many lifetimes. Don't her tormentors have heavy sins? Why don't Bodhisattva help her? Nanzang didn't say anything. Yi Xian smiled. I know, because she is strong and has an extraordinary identity. Bodhisattva doesn't dare to help her. He doesn't even dare to show mercy and save the red spider lily, right? Nanzang looked at him, still didn't say anything. Yi Xian went on. Buddhists are particular about great kindness and compassion. But it also depends on the person to show mercy, right? Nanzang sighed softly, didn't say anything. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Ain pulled on Yi Xian's sleeve. But Yi Xian couldn't stop, he continued. Nanzang Bodhisattva, you said that if hell is not empty, you will not become a Buddha. But have you ever thought, why is hell not empty? The problem is not in hell, but in the world of the living. Why were there so many Tao breakers in the past? Because there is unfairness. And since there is unfairness, there is resistance. Just like the realm of ultimate bliss, they wanted the Tao scriptures, so they came to rob me. Bodhisattva, what do you think of their behavior? Ain pulled on Yi Xian's sleeve again, and Yi Xian glared at Ain. Don't stop me, I want to continue bluffing. Oh no, I want to continue. Saying this, he looked at Nanzang. Buddha says that all living beings are equal, but in my opinion they are not. The senior who taught me Dharma said that all living beings are equal in his heart. I believe this because he has no double standards. Nanzang Bodhisattva, you. On the side, Ain suddenly pulled on Yi Xian's hand. He said he wants to help you purify some of the evil karma in you. This is a good thing for you. Many people yearn for him to help them transcend. Yi Xian blinked. Doesn't helping me mean to kill me? The corners of Ain's mouth twitched. Who told you that expiation means killing you? Haven't you heard of this saying? When Buddha helps all living beings, he says he wants to help you purify the evil karma in you. Do you understand? Yi Xian looked at Ain. Why didn't you say so earlier? Ain spread his hands. You can't stop yourself. Yi Xian was silent for a long time, then said, What now? I'm a bit embarrassed. Chapter 13:16. At this time, Nanzang Bodhisattva suddenly smiled. Actually, what you said is right. Yi Xian looked at Nanzang Bodhisattva. Nanzang Bodhisattva said softly, There are many unreasonable things in this world, just like what you said about the red spider lilies. Saying this, he sighed softly. Ain suddenly said, Nanzang Bodhisattva, don't blame yourself. If it wasn't for you, those two would have disappeared long ago. Nanzang shook his head. We all know that doubting has done wrong, but no one is willing to stand up for it. Saying this, he looked at Yi Xian. On this point, we can't compare to you. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Now that woman wants to take revenge on me. Nanzang asked. If you were given a chance to choose again, you would still do the same, right? Yi Xian nodded. Nanzang smiled slightly. Good. Little brother. Although you are entangled by the cause of disaster, you have a good heart. No wonder Wu Wang would pass his lifetime inheritance to you. Ain suddenly said, Good heart? Saying this, she also glanced at Yi Xian. Nanzang nodded. I am not wrong. Yi Xian said solemnly. Senior, I destroyed the realm of ultimate bliss. Aren't you going to avenge them? Nanzang shook his head. The monks of the realm of ultimate bliss were greedy. They only had themselves to blame for what happened. Moreover, as far as I know, you did not completely destroy the realm of ultimate bliss. But rather, you are rebuilding it? Yi Xian nodded. Nanzang smiled. In return, I will recite the Mahayana Diamond Sutra for you. Yi Xian hurriedly said. Can you release the cause of disaster from my body? Nanzang hesitated, then shook his head. I'm afraid not. Yi Xian, Nanzang smiled. However, it can wash away some of the karma and evil thoughts from your body. Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. Thank you. Nanzang nodded slightly and began to silently recite the scripture. Soon, countless golden scriptures floated towards Yi Xian. Soon, Yi Xian was directly wrapped up by those golden scriptures, and some of the black lines around him began to slowly turn illusory. At the side, Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, who was wrapped in scriptures, thinking about something. Ain was also quietly watching Yi Xian and Nanzang in front of him. About 2 hours later, Nanzang stopped, and Yi Xian was surrounded by a ball of Buddhist light. Yi Xian moved his muscles and bones a little. As if he had discovered something, he looked towards Nanzang. Why do I feel so light? At the side, Ain suddenly said. Because some of the messy karma on you has been washed away. There is no cause and no effect, so naturally you are free. Moreover, the soul expiation technique has purified your body, so there isn't a single impurity in your body right now. It'll be even easier for you to charge into the Tao realm. Yi Xian's expression shook, and he looked at Nanzang and pressed his palms together. Thank you. He was quite surprised this time because he hadn't expected that Nanzang wouldn't just not cause trouble for him. He would even help him. Nanzang gazed at Yi Xian. Little brother, I've always believed that good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be repaid with evil. The Buddhists seized your scriptures, so it's understandable that you killed them. On the other hand, you left behind the Buddhist clan's inheritance and helped rebuild the Western paradise. This is a good deed on your part, and I'm helping you today in order to repay this good deed. After today, the enmity between you and the Buddhist clan will be settled. What do you think? Yi Xian glanced at Nanzang and nodded. All right. Nanzang nodded slightly, and then he looked at Ain. Take care. As soon as he finished speaking, his body turned illusory, and it didn't take long for him to vanish completely. On the spot, Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming suddenly looked at Ain. What would have happened if he had massacred the entire Western paradise? Ain smiled. Then if he doesn't have a trump card today, he won't be able to leave this place. Yi Jiming was silent. Ain said softly, the Buddhist clan's expert seized his study room, and this was an evil deed. In Nanzang Bodhisattva's heart, Yi Xian's killing of them was understandable, and the Buddha's fate was their own fault. However, there are many monks in the Western paradise who study Buddhist Dharma, and these people are innocent. Yi Xian didn't kill them, and instead rebuilt the Western paradise. In Nanzang Bodhisattva's heart, this is a good deed, and since it's a good deed, there should be good results. But, at this point she stopped. Yi Xian looked at Ain. But what? Ain said softly. You received the inheritance of an enlightened Buddhist monk, and that monk has some connection with Nanzang Bodhisattva. However, he didn't mention this, nor did he give you any advice. This means that he doesn't want to have too much to do with you. Just like he said you two are even. Yi Xian smiled. I understand. Ain looked at Yi Xian. I can give you a reminder. If you leave now, go back and cultivate well. Your future will be limitless. If you... Yi Xian looked at Ain. If I go back now and behave myself, will the underworld let me go? Ain said in a low voice. You can hand over the stone of 3 lives. Hearing this, Yi Jiming frowned. She knew that Ain and the stone of 3 lives were friends. Ain's question was undoubtedly a test for Yi Xian, because Yi Xian didn't know this. Yi Xian looked at Ain and smiled. Miss Ain, Sansheng is my friend. I won't hand her over to the underworld. I don't have the right to do so, because she isn't one of my possessions. What right do I have to make decisions for her? Ain looked at Yi Xian. After a moment she smiled. I'm relieved that she's with you. Yi Xian frowned. You're the friend Sansheng spoke of. Ain nodded. Yes, I'm her only friend in the underworld, and she's my only friend. I came to find you this time, because I wanted to see who she had chosen. The reason I was able to find you is because you have her aura on you. I have been with her for over 100,000 years, so I am very familiar with her aura. Then, she turned her head and looked into the distance. Go 660 miles, and you'll reach Fengdu City. After you enter the city, go to the south of the city. There's a forbidden ground there, and it's the Yellow Spring River. There are at least 6 Dao validation experts guarding there. It's impossible for you to enter openly. Yi Xian asked, do you have a way? Ayin nodded. She opened her palm, and there was a small stone in her hand. This is a soul-concealing stone. It can hide the aura of the soul. You can use this stone to sneak into the Yellow Spring River. As for whether you can get the Yellow Spring holy water, it depends on your luck. Yi Xian took the soul-concealing stone and looked at Ayin. You're leaving? Ayin nodded. I can't follow you anymore. Saying this, she shook her head with a smile. I overestimated my strength. I thought I could resist the disaster cause on you, but now it seems I can't. I have a strong feeling that if I continue to follow you, I'll be done for. Yi Xian was speechless. Ayin continued. Actually, it's not that Nanzang Bodhisattva didn't interfere with the red spider lily you mentioned before. But it didn't work out. That woman's background is much more terrifying than you think. As far as I know, after she found out you saved the red spider lily, she was very, very angry. And when she's angry, the consequences will be very serious. And you're going to get the Yellow Spring holy water. If I continue to follow you, I'm afraid it'll be hard for me to get away. So we can only part here. Yi Xian nodded with a smile. Take care. Ayin nodded. If you can go back, remember to tell San Sheng for me. Tell her not to think about attacking the underworld. If she doesn't give up, tell her that I'm fine. I'll find time to visit her. Yi Xian replied. All right. Ayin smiled. Take care. Saying this, she turned around and floated into the distance. Before long, she completely disappeared from Yi Xian and Yi Jiming's sight. On the spot, Yi Xian fell silent. Yi Jiming suddenly said, Let's go. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming looked back at him coldly. What are you trying to say? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Jiming, this trip to Fengdu City will be very dangerous. Yi Jiming stared at Yi Xian. You want me to leave? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Then he said, You said it, not me. Hearing this, the corners of Yi Jiming's mouth twitched. She shook her head and smiled. You brat, go. Saying this, she walked into the distance. Chapter 13:17. Fengdu City. Fengdu City was huge, and the entire city reeked of yin and death energy. Cold. This was Yi Xian's first impression upon seeing Fengdu City. He had never seen such a cold place before. The entire city reeked of yin and death energy. This was a place that no one could enter. If not for the death zone, he would not be able to adapt to this place. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian turned to Yi Jiming. Jiming, are you all right? Yi Jiming shook his head. I'm fine. Yi Xian nodded. He looked at the city gate of Fengdu City, where there were many spirits floating around. Yi Xian asked softly, Jiming, are you really coming with me? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Are you really going? Yi Xian nodded. Yi Jiming said, Then I'll go with you. Yi Xian fell silent. Yi Jiming said softly, I'm serious, I can protect myself. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. You've accompanied me all the way here. It's already very kind of you. You really don't have to risk your life with me, I'm serious. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. You're afraid of dragging me down and feeling guilty for the rest of your life, right? Yi Xian nodded. After a long silence, Yi Jiming said, Without my help, you won't be able to get the Yellow Spring's holy water. Saying so, she walked into the distance. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian followed. Using the soul-concealing stone that Ayin had given them, they successfully entered Fengdu City. After entering Fengdu City, Yi Xian and Yi Jiming felt uneasy. There were too many ghosts here. Furthermore, some of the spirits had hideous appearances and were extremely ugly to look at. Yi Xian looked around and found that Fengdu City was bustling. There were tall buildings, countless hearses on the streets, and ghosts bustling about. Both sides of the street were lined with all kinds of shops. This wasn't quite the same as what he had in mind. Yi Jiming suddenly said softly, The souls here are probably unable to reincarnate, or perhaps they are ghost cultivators who are focused on cultivating their souls. Yi Xian looked at the Yin souls. Some of the Yin souls were not weak. A few of them were even at the return to origin breaking realm. However, he did not discover any self-release realm cultivators. Clearly experts at the self-release realm were few and far between in the netherworld. The two of them didn't waste any time, and continued forward. Before long, Yi Xian and Yi Jiming arrived at the forbidden area of Fengdu City, the Yellow Spring River. In front of the two of them was a dense forest. Behind this dense forest was the legendary Yellow Spring River. As soon as Yi Xian and Yi Jiming approached the forest, they felt several powerful auras. This powerful aura caused the two's expressions to change. Very strong. Yi Xian's expression was solemn. This place was indeed not simple. Fortunately, he had the soul concealment stone that Ain had given him. Otherwise, he and Yi Jiming wouldn't have been able to get close to this place. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming and sent him a voice transmission. Enter the pagoda. Yi Jiming nodded, and then he entered the prism pagoda. Yi Xian walked slowly towards the dense forest. Because of the soul concealment stone, he was able to avoid the powerful auras. After entering the forest, Yi Xian noticed that the forest was filled with all sorts of mysterious talismans. These talismans were hung all over the ancient trees, and it was very strange. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "This is the ghost talisman formation. It can see through all concealment techniques in the world." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Is it useful against my soul concealment stone?" Yi Jiming said, "No. However, you have to be careful. Don't touch these talismans." Yi Xian nodded and walked slowly towards the distance. During this time, he didn't dare to touch the talismans. He was very clear about his current situation. If he was discovered, who knew how many experts from the netherworld would besiege him? There can't be the slightest mistake. Yi Xian walked slowly, and not long later he stopped. Not far in front of him, there were many ghosts hanging. These ghosts were nailed to some mysterious ancient trees. From time to time, their bodies would flicker with lightning. Every time lightning flashed, these ghosts would let out miserable shrieks. Yi Xian glanced at the ghosts and said solemnly, "These guys aren't here to steal the Yellow Spring's holy water, are they?" Yi Jiming said, "They should be. The netherworld left them here to deter those who came to steal the Yellow Spring's holy water." Yi Xian looked at the ghosts and shook his head. How tragic. Saying so, he continued walking. Yi Jiming said, "You might also be hung here." Yi Xian's face darkened. "I won't." Yi Jiming said, "Then be careful." Yi Xian nodded. He was even more careful now. This place is really dangerous. I'm really on tenterhooks at every moment. After walking for about a quarter of an hour, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. A few dozen feet in front of him, there was an ancient tree with a bloody head hanging on it. The bloody head had flesh and skin on it, so it was not a ghost. However, Yi Xian discovered that there was a soul imprisoned in that head. Needless to say, this was also a prisoner, but this guy should be stronger than the ones before him. Yi Xian glanced at the head and continued walking. At this time, the head slightly raised and looked at Yi Xian's position. Yi Xian's body stiffened, and he looked at the head. The head stared back at him, and the corner of its mouth curled up into a sinister smile. Yi Xian was silent. "Damn it! This person can see me? What the hell?" Yi Jiming said solemnly. "Get ready to run." Yi Xian nodded, but he knew that if he ran now, only death awaited him. Yi Xian was very calm. What kind of storm had he not been through? Yi Xian looked at the head, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a calm smile. The head was slightly taken aback. Why is this guy so calm? Yi Xian walked in front of the head, and he sized it up. He didn't speak, very calm and very calm. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. "You're pretending to be calm." Yi Xian suddenly took out the green-robed man's sword, and he held it in front of the head. Seeing the sword, the head's pupils shrank, and he looked at Yi Xian with a trace of disbelief. "This sword?" Yi Xian smiled, but didn't say anything. The head looked at Yi Xian. "You, Daybreaker?" Yi Xian nodded. The head frowned. But I can feel that you're not very strong, Yi Xian frowned, and the head's eyelids twitched. He didn't dare to continue. Dao breaker. This kind of person is very, very scary. Yi Xian looked at the head. Why are you imprisoned here? The head said solemnly, Yellow Spring's holy water. Yi Xian said in a low voice, You failed? The head glanced at Yi Xian, but didn't speak. Yi Xian turned his head, looked into the distance and smiled. To tell you the truth, this venerate came here for the Yellow Spring's holy water. The head suddenly said, Are you really a Dao breaker? Yi Xian looked at the head and frowned. Do you want to see if this venerate's sword is sharp? As he spoke, he held the sword against the forehead of the head. The head didn't show any fear, and it gazed calmly at Yi Xian. Your Excellency, if this sword really is yours, then why do I feel like it isn't one with you? Yi Xian fell silent. This fellow isn't easy to fool. Suddenly, the sword spirit trembled slightly, and then it transformed into a ray of blood-red light that entered the space between Yi Xian's brows. At this moment, he was the sword, and the sword was the venerate. The head's expression changed when it saw this scene, and it hurriedly said, Please forgive me if I've offended you just now. At this moment, he believed Yi Xian. In his opinion, since the sword could fuse with Yi Xian, it was definitely Yi Xian's sword, because a sword of this level would absolutely not submit to an outsider. Of course, he hadn't imagined that Yi Xian wasn't an outsider in the heart of the sword. Yi Xian's expression was calm as he sized up the head, and then he said, How many years have you been imprisoned here? The head replied in a low voice, 19,000 years. 20,000 years. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it. Isn't that a little too cruel? Yi Xian pondered deeply for a moment and said, How about this? I'll rescue you once I'm done. He wanted to pacify this fellow right now and stop it from acting rashly. Otherwise, he would really be finished once the experts of the netherworld were drawn over. The head hesitated for a moment before it said, There's no need. A trace of surprise flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. Could it be that you don't want to leave? The head shook its head. To tell you the truth, I already possess the ability to break open the seal within me. However, I'm waiting for them to relax a little before I escape. As he spoke, he gazed towards the distance. According to my observations, these experts of the netherworld would gather during a special festival, the Ghost Festival that occurs once every 100 years. At that time, this place would become much more relaxed, and I'm prepared to escape at that time. Yi Xian blinked. The Ghost Festival? The head nodded. The Ghost Festival is in a month. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, Fine, then I won't force you. Take care of yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked towards the distance. Meanwhile, the head suddenly said, Senior, take care as well. Yi Xian grinned, and his smile carried a strand of invincible confidence. Don't worry, even if Nanzang, the Lord of the Netherworld, and that Dao Lord Qing Ming join forces, they won't be able to do anything to me. As soon as he finished speaking, he left in a carefree manner. There was a trace of respect in the eyes of the head behind him. In the distance, Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Thank goodness that fellow was dealt with. Otherwise, it would have been really dangerous. With his current strength, it wasn't enough for him to do as he pleased in the netherworld. Yi Xian took a deep breath, and then he continued forward. Around an hour later, Yi Xian walked out of the dense forest. Outside the dense forest, the dim view of the sky was like a sea of blood at dusk, and it was a beautiful and strange red. Before him was a river that stretched for 150 kilometers. The river flowed with water that was dazzling like mercury, and it was pleasing to the eye at first glance. There was a stone tablet by the river, and there were 2 lines of words on it. Yellow Spring River, Yellow Spring River. At the sight of this river, yin and yang are separated. Previous life. This life. Everything was futile. P.S. Asking for votes. I ask for it every day for an entire day. At this moment, the Yi Xian in front of her gave her a strange feeling. The guy in front of her usually laughed and looked very unreliable. But at this moment, she suddenly realized that this guy actually had a lot of good points. His will was firm, and he could endure what ordinary people couldn't. She could feel the pain that Yi Xian was experiencing. This pain was definitely worse than death by 1,000 cuts. But this guy could actually endure it. After a long time, Yi Jiming sighed softly. In the Yellow Spring River, Yi Xian slowly walked towards the depths of the Yellow Spring River. After walking for about an hour, he suddenly realized that not only was his physical body being corroded, but his soul was also being corroded. Both his soul and physical body were being corroded. When his soul started to be corroded, Yi Xian's expression changed. He could endure the corrosion of his physical body. But when his soul was being corroded, he panicked a little. The pain of his soul being corroded was at least 10 times worse than the pain of his physical body. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "Let's go back." Yi Xian took a deep breath and grinned. "Since I'm already here, how can I give up halfway?" Saying that, he continued forward. But now it was different. Every step he took was extremely difficult, as if it weighed 1,000 tons. It was really too painful. His soul and physical body were being corroded, and he couldn't use his own strength to resist the corrosive force. In this river, even the slightest fluctuation of energy would consign him to eternal damnation. Gritting his teeth, Yi Xian walked step by step towards the depths of the Yellow Spring River. But now his consciousness was starting to blur. Every time his consciousness was about to fade, he would bite the tip of his tongue, and the sharp pain would make him a little more clear-headed. In the prison pagoda, Yi Jiming asked softly, "Is it worth it?" Yi Xian didn't answer Yi Jiming. He only wanted to reach the depths of the Yellow Spring River as soon as possible. About an hour later, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. At this moment, his face was extremely pale, and his body was trembling as if he was convulsing. But there was a trace of excitement on his face. He had reached the end. Not far in front of him, there was a huge runic array. In the center of the runic array, there was a small green bottle. Within the small bottle, there was a dark gray liquid. Yi Xian said in a trembling voice, "Jiming, is that the Yellow Spring holy water?" Yi Jiming was silent for a moment, then said, "The liquid is dark gray, symbolizing the soul and death. This is the Yellow Spring holy water." Yi Xian was about to go over, but as if he thought of something, he hurriedly stopped. Formation. There was a powerful formation at the bottom of the Yellow Spring River. Apart from the formation, he also felt a powerful aura. There was an expert guarding it. Damn it! The Netherworld actually sent so many experts to protect the Yellow Spring holy water. Yi Xian tried to calm himself down. After a moment, he said in a low voice, "Jiming, can you feel where that expert is?" Yi Jiming said, 100 zhang to the right." Yi Xian looked to the right. 100 zhang away, there was nothing there. Yi Jiming said, "He's hiding in the dark." Yi Xian fell silent. "What should I do? If I touch the Yellow Spring holy water, I'm sure I'll be discovered." For a moment, Yi Xian fell silent. Yi Xian was also silent. Yi Xian was in a dilemma. If he wanted to take the Yellow Spring holy water, he would definitely alarm the experts here. If he left now, Yi Xian would definitely be unwilling. It really wasn't easy for him to come here. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "I have to make a decision." Yi Xian looked at the Yellow Spring holy water. After a long silence, he said, "Jiming, can you help me avoid this formation?" Yi Jiming was silent. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I'm too unwilling to leave now." Yi Jiming said, "Give me some time." Yi Xian nodded. He looked at the Yellow Spring holy water in the distance, thinking about something. Roughly 15 minutes later, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "This is an ancient godly talisman array, specifically used to imprison people. If you were to disturb it, you'll be imprisoned immediately. However, if there's no energy fluctuation, it won't be activated. So, you only have one choice later. And that is to take the Yellow Spring holy water by force and immediately escape. But doing so will alarm the experts here. If you don't have a plan, you won't be able to take the Yellow Spring holy water away." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." With that, he slowly closed his eyes. "Big sister, can I use the Tao of Space?" Tao of Space. He didn't forget the Tao of Space in the pagoda. These Tao of Space were not just for show. They were just not used at the right time. It was worth mentioning that his greatest trump card was not the Tao scriptures or martial arts, but the World Prison Pagoda. His current body could already withstand most of the power of the World Prison Pagoda. Moments later, Big Sister's voice suddenly resounded in Yi Xian's mind. Although the space here is reinforced by the formation, there are no grand Tao laws. So, you can use the Tao of space to forcefully move yourself and the yellow spring holy water away. However, I have to remind you that there are many experts here, and I'm afraid there are experts who can forcefully seal off space. Once such experts make a move, it will be very difficult for you to escape from the netherworld. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. With that, he slowly walked towards the green bottle. There were at least 20 drops of yellow spring holy water in the bottle. 20 drops. This was a sacred item that the netherworld had accumulated for many years. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, I know that you don't do things that you're not confident in. What trump card do you have? Yi Xian fell silent for a moment. Then he smiled. What trump card do I have? It's just pure guts. With that, the Tao of space suddenly condensed between his eyebrows. At the moment the Tao of space appeared, a furious shout suddenly resounded from the depths of the Yellow Spring River. How dare you? As soon as the voice resounded, a powerful aura suddenly shook from the depths of the Yellow Spring River. In an instant, the entire Yellow Spring River shook violently. At this moment, Yi Xian and the bottle of Yellow Spring holy water disappeared. Teleportation. At the moment when Yi Xian disappeared, an old man with a walking stick suddenly appeared where Yi Xian was. When he saw Yi Xian disappear, the old man was slightly stunned. In the next moment, his face turned ferocious, and he suddenly stomped his right foot, turned into a black light, and disappeared. After Yi Xian left the Yellow Spring River, he directly appeared in the dense forest from before. Yi Xian was stunned. Why am I still in this forbidden area? Meanwhile, the big sister said in a low voice, there's an extremely powerful restriction in the space of this forbidden area, and the Tao of space can't break it. So, Yi Xian's face darkened. So I can only teleport in this forbidden area? The big sister said, yes. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. At this moment, he turned around, and his expression changed drastically in the next moment. They found me. What should I do? Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and was about to leave when a voice resounded from the side. Senior? Yi Xian turned around and saw that it was the mysterious head he'd encountered earlier. The head gazed at Yi Xian and said excitedly, Senior, did you succeed? Yi Xian blinked. Then he said, how can I fail if I attack with my own body? As he spoke, he took out the green bottle that contained the Yellow Spring holy water. The head's face was filled with admiration. I admire you, Yi Xian suddenly said. Do you want to kill our way out? The head blinked and said, kill our way out? Yi Xian roared with laughter. Of course we're going to kill our way out. How about it? Do you dare to kill our way out with me? The head was in a difficult position. He would be able to sneak out in another month, so it would be too risky if he were to break free now. Yi Xian roared with laughter. How can cultivators like us be afraid? If you have the guts, then break free right now, and kill our way out of the netherworld with me. Kill our way out of the netherworld. The head's blood boiled when he heard that, but he was still slightly worried. Senior, the Lord of the Netherworld. Yi Xian waved his hand and smiled. The Lord of the Netherworld is nothing. If he dares to attack, then I'll obliterate his soul today. I'll only ask you one thing. Do you dare to kill our way out of the netherworld with me? If you do, then I might even give you some good fortune. The head fell silent for a few breaths of time before he spoke fiercely. Damn it. Let's do it. As soon as he finished speaking, bang! A powerful aura suddenly burst forth from the battlefield. Chapter 13:19. The head in front of Yi Xian started to tremble violently, and it didn't take long for a body to actually grow out at a visible speed. At this moment, the old man holding a crutch at the bottom of the river suddenly appeared not far from Yi Xian. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene, but his expression was very calm. The old man gazed at Yi Xian. How interesting. A self-release realm cultivator actually dared to come and steal the Yellow Spring's holy water. Yi Xian glanced at the old man and smiled without saying a word. His smile carried deep meaning. The old man frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene. Could it be that this fellow has something to rely on? As if he'd thought of something, he suddenly gazed at the man by Yi Xian's side. Wu Xin, you're on his side. The man who'd just regrown his body roared with laughter. Mu Chun, I'm on the same side as this senior. Senior? The old man called Mu Chun gazed at Yi Xian, and his brows knit together slightly. You called him senior? Wu Xin smiled. Mu Chun, it's not too late for you to flee now. Really? Mu Chun took a deep and long glance at Yi Xian. Who exactly are you? At this moment, he felt quite fearful in his heart. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for a self-release realm cultivator to come here. Moreover, he was clearly aware of Wu Xin's strength. Yet Wu Xin had actually called this fellow senior. It wasn't simple at all. Meanwhile, Wu Xin stretched his body, and then he gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. Senior, should I kill this fellow? Yi Xian glanced at Mu Chun. He isn't worthy of me making a move against him. Just kill him. Wu Xin was stunned, and then he smiled, all right. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly turned around to gaze at Mu Chun, and then he smashed his fist forward. His fist smashed forward, and a black fist swept forward. Wu Xin's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't dare act carelessly in the slightest, and he tapped his walking stick forward lightly. In an instant, a black shield appeared in front of him. Meanwhile, the fist smashed directly against the black shield. Bang! Along with an explosion, Mu Chun retreated explosively by almost 300 m. Yi Xian glanced at Wu Xian beside him. This guy was a little fierce. This fellow was definitely an expert at the pinnacle of the Tao-proving realm. Wu Xian was about to attack again, but at this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Let's go." After he finished speaking, he turned around and transformed into a sword light, disappearing into the distance. Wu Xian stared blankly for a moment, then hurriedly followed. Yi Xian's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he left the forbidden area of the underworld. When he appeared in Fengdu City, 3 extremely powerful auras suddenly enveloped him. Yi Xian's expression darkened. 3 self-release realm experts. At this time, Wu Xian suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. He looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Senior. Yi Xian nodded slightly. At this time, 4 people appeared in front of them, 2 old men and 2 middle-aged men. Wu Xian said solemnly, "The 4 revelations, the 4 old farts in charge of guarding the Yellow Spring River." Yi Xian looked at Wu Xian. "Can you defeat the 4 of them?" Wu Xian blinked. "Fight 4?" Yi Xian nodded. "Of course." Wu Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, "I can fight too, but for this." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." Wu Xian hurriedly said, "The 4 of them shouldn't be a match for a single sword strike from Senior, right?" Yi Xian smiled proudly. "How many people in this world can take a sword strike from me?" Wu Xian felt deep veneration. "Who in this world can take a sword strike from me? How many years has it been since I've heard such bold words?" At this moment Mu Chun, who was the leader of the 4 revelations, suddenly said, "Who exactly are you?" In their perception, Yi Xian was at the self-release realm, but they were slightly doubtful. A self-release realm expert dared to be so arrogant? It didn't make sense. Yi Xian glanced at Mu Chun. "Are you worthy of my sword? Call the Lord of the Nether Realm out." Hearing this, Wu Xian, who was next to Yi Xian, was stunned, and then he hurriedly looked at Mu Chun. "Mu Chun, hurry up and call your Lord of the Nether Realm out. Hurry up." At this moment, Wu Xian's back was ramrod straight. This thigh is thick. The feeling of hugging a thigh is really not bad. Opposite Yi Xian, Mu Chun stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Someone like you is worthy of seeing my Lord of the Nether Realm? You." Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and the sword spirit appeared in his hand. When they saw this sword, Mu Chun and the others' expressions changed. They weren't sure if Yi Xian was strong, but this sword really wasn't simple. This was clearly a sword of the Tao-breaking realm. Could it be that this fellow in front of them was a Tao-breaking expert? At this thought, Mu Chun and the others couldn't help but turn pale. Imu Chun looked at Yi Xian, and then he hesitated. Your Excellency, who exactly are you? Yi Xian didn't answer, and he just slowly closed his eyes. Jiming, take advantage of the chaos and leave with the Yellow Springs holy water. Yi Jiming said solemnly. What about you? Yi Xian said. I have a way to escape. Yi Jiming still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly said softly, Please. Yi Jiming said, All right. Yi Xian looked at Imu Chun and smiled. What, am I not worthy of seeing your lord of the nether realm? Imu Chun said solemnly, Your Excellency is a Dao breaker? A Dao breaker. An expert of this level wasn't just terrifying, it was extremely terrifying. It could be said that a Dao confirming expert was practically powerless before a Dao breaking expert. One was a Dao confirming expert, the other a Dao breaking expert. However, at this moment, a mysterious force suddenly swept towards them from below. Mu Sheng frowned slightly. Hades. At this moment, an afterimage rushed up from below. It was Gehenna Monarch. The two monarchs of the underworld. Yi Xian suddenly said, Take her and leave. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of sword light and charged down. Below, Gehenna Monarch's eyes narrowed slightly, and he punched out to meet Yi Xian's sword light. Boom! The sword light shattered, and Yi Xian retreated explosively for nearly 300 meters. As soon as Yi Xian stopped, the space behind him turned into nothingness. His body had withstood this powerful force, but the space behind him couldn't. Fortunately, Yi Jiming and Mu Sheng had disappeared. Gehenna Monarch looked at Yi Xian. Hades, go after Mu Sheng. As soon as he finished speaking, a Yin spirit disappeared at the end of the sky. Gehenna Monarch looked at Yi Xian. I underestimated your strength. As expected of someone who possesses the Dao scripture and the Dao stone. At such a young age, you actually have such ability. However, you overestimate yourself a little. How dare you come to my underworld to steal the Yellow Spring holy water? What do you call this? This is self-destruction. As soon as he finished speaking, some experts appeared around him. A total of 10 Dao validation experts came. These 10 people were the 10 ghost emperors of the underworld. The battle between Mu Sheng and Gehenna Monarch just now was too big. So most of the experts of the underworld rushed to Fengdu City. Just now, there were no less than 15 Dao validation experts in the field. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, Wu Xin suddenly said in a trembling voice, Senior. Yi Xian looked at Wu Xin, and Wu Xin stared at Yi Xian, gulping. Senior, you're a Dao breaker, right? Yi Xian spread his hands. I also want to be, but unfortunately I'm not. Ah. Wu Xin suddenly collapsed. Why do you want to harm me like this? I can sneak out in 1 month. 1 month. You tricked me into killing our way out with you. I actually believed you. I'm really the biggest idiot in history. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I can't beat a dozen Dao validation experts. I can't beat them. You big liar. You goddamn liar. Uh-huh. At this point he actually wailed like a child. Although he did not cry, there was a sense of sorrow. It was very miserable. P.S. The winner of the vote gets the blue wand. 1 vote per day, 1 vote for 1 day. Chapter 1320. At this moment, Wu Xian was indeed sullen. After being trapped for more than 20,000 years, he originally had a chance to escape, but he chose to listen to this fellow's words and escaped ahead of time. Now great! What should he do now that the experts of the netherworld had gathered? What to do? Thinking of this, Wu Xian could not help but feel sorrow in his heart. The experts of the netherworld revealed extremely strange expressions as well. They naturally knew who Wu Xian was. This guy had also come to steal the Yellow Springs holy water in the past, but he didn't succeed. His physical body was severed by the Lord of the Underworld, and he was sealed in the forbidden area, suffering the pain of the Yin wind cutting his soul. It was just that they did not expect that this fellow could actually break the seal and escape. All the experts of the nether dimension were slightly shocked, because that seal was personally placed by the Lord of the nether dimension all those years ago. To the side, Yi Xian glanced at Wu Xian, who was still wailing. He couldn't bear it in his heart. Senior, calm down first. Wu Xian raised his head to look at Yi Xian. He just stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian felt a little uncomfortable being stared at by him. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. Senior, we can still kill our way out. Kill our way out. Wu Xian looked at Yi Xian and said angrily, there are already 20 Dao Vindication cultivators here. Senior, how many are you planning to fight? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before raising a finger. Wu Xian stared blankly. 10. Yi Xian quickly shook his head. 1. Wu Xian flew into a rage. Do you want me to fight 19? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, then I'll fight 2. You can fight 18 of them. You. Wu Xian angrily pointed at Yi Xian. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Senior, I can only fight 2 at most. Moreover, it's a little difficult to fight both of them. Thoughtless looked at Yi Xian. Big brother, my dear big brother, I don't understand. You, a self-release realm cultivator, came to steal the Yellow Springs holy water? What right do you have to steal the Yellow Springs holy water? Why? Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, how bold! Wu Xian angrily said, your guts are fat, very fat. Lousy has never seen your guts so fat. But why did you lie to me? You want me to come out early? Do you know that I can leave the netherworld in a month's time? Yi Xian glanced at Wu Xian and said helplessly, I didn't plan on calling you, but you stopped me. I asked if you wanted to kill your way out. And then you agreed. Wu Xian said angrily, you told me that you are a Dao breaker. You said that no one in the underworld is your match. Yi Xian shrugged. I was bragging. Senior, don't tell me you've never bragged before? Wu Xian was so angry that he almost died on the spot. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly walked in front of Wu Xian. He opened his palm, and in the center of his palm, there was a dark gray drop of water. Yellow Springs holy water. Wu Xian was stunned. Yi Xian said, Senior, you have been trapped for so many years. Your soul must have been seriously injured. Come drink it. Wu Xian looked at Yi Xian with some uncertainty. For me. Yi Xian hurriedly said, don't look. Drink it quickly. Wu Xian quickly took the Yellow Springs holy water and drank it. The moment he drank it, a powerful soul aura swept out of his body. The soul aura made the entire Fengdu city tremble. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Isn't this Yellow Springs holy water too abnormal? At this moment, the surrounding underworld powerhouses all looked at Wu Xian. Gehenna King's gaze also fell on Wu Xian. It should be said that his focus has always been on Wu Xian. The people of the underworld knew little about Wu Xian's origin and strength, but they knew that Wu Xian was not ordinary. Back then, the Lord of the Underworld personally took action to suppress this guy. Wu Xian greedily took a deep breath, clenched his fists, and in an instant, a soul fluctuation shook the surroundings. Powerful soul power. But at this moment, there were nearly 30 Dao Validation Realm powerhouses present. Seeing this lineup, Yi Xian fell silent. How can I get out? I definitely can't beat them. It's useless to bluff. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian turned to look at Wu Xian. Sensing Yi Xian's gaze, Wu Xian immediately looked at him with an unfriendly expression. What bad ideas are you up to now? Yi Xian. At this moment, Gehenna King suddenly said, Wu Xian, the Lord of the Underworld didn't kill you back then because he cherished talent. If you are willing to join the Underworld, all the past grievances will be settled. What do you think? Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. He glanced at Wu Xian. Damn, this guy won't join the Underworld, will he? Wu Xian did not answer Gehenna King. Instead, he looked at Yi Xian and chuckled. Are you panicking? I'm asking you, are you panicking? Yi Xian looked at Gehenna King. Can I surrender as well? The corners of Wu Xian's mouth twitched. Fuck. The experts of the underworld looked at each other. Damn it, what kind of weirdo is this? Are the people of the Yang realm all so amusing? Gehenna King looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Surrender? That's fine too. But you have to hand over one of your souls and one spirit. One soul and one spirit. At the side, Wu Xian looked at Yi Xian and sneered. Handing over one soul and one spirit was equivalent to becoming someone else's dog. If someone told you to go left, then you couldn't go right. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Can I go back and think about it? As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and ran. Wu Xian was dumbfounded. Yi Xian ran very quickly, because he used the Space Dao Law. In the blink of an eye, he vanished from Fengdu City. Gehenna King was expressionless. He didn't give chase, and the experts of the underworld didn't attack either. 2 breaths later, Yi Xian reappeared at his original position. Wu Xian looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Io, great hoodwinker, why are you back again?" Yi Xian's expression turned a little ugly. Damn it, there's something wrong with Fengdu City. When he tried to use the Space Dao Law to escape this place, he realized that the space here was like a maze. So after going around for a while, he returned here again. There was a spatial array here. Gehenna King looked at Yi Xian. Do you want to continue running? Yi Xian suddenly said. Why aren't you guys making a move? What are you waiting for? Gehenna King did not say anything, and turned to look at the horizon. At the intersection of the Yang realm and the Yang realm, Mu Xing stopped with Yi Jiming. Behind the two of them was a dark shadow. Mu Xing turned around, and looked at the approaching dark shadow. You go first, Yi Jiming said in a low voice. What about him? Mu Xing was expressionless. I only promised to help him once, and he asked me to save you. Yi Jiming fell silent. Mu Xing looked at Yi Jiming. He stayed there on purpose. His hatred is too great. If he leaves with us, all the powerhouses in the Yang realm will join forces to keep us here. Do you understand? Yi Jiming did not say anything. He turned around and ran. Mu Xing turned to look at the dark shadow with a cold gaze. Underworld scum. With that, she turned into a black light, and disappeared on the spot. Boom! Suddenly, the intersection of the Yang realm and the Yang realm shook violently. Fengdu City. Gehenna King suddenly retracted his gaze and looked at Yi Xian. You're very capable to be able to get the Dao realm to help you. Yi Xian chuckled. Looks like she's safe now. Gehenna King turned to look at Wu Xian. What do you think of my suggestion? Wu Xian laughed. If I had been willing to bow my head back then, I wouldn't have been imprisoned for 20,000 years. As for now, if I surrender, wouldn't I have been imprisoned for 20,000 years in vain? At the side, Yi Xian immediately gave him a thumbs up. Good job, senior. Wu Xian glared at Yi Xian angrily. Shut up. Yi Xian was speechless. Gehenna King glanced at Wu Xian and nodded. Since that's the case, then you can die here. With that, he turned into a black light and charged at Wu Xian. Wu Xian laughed. Come on. Let me see if you've improved over the years. With that, he also charged out. The underworld powerhouses looked at Yi Xian. Mu Chun, who was the leader, suddenly said, Kill him. More than 20 Dao-proving realm powerhouses dashed towards Yi Xian as soon as they finished speaking. How terrifying was it when over 20 Dao validation powerhouses attacked in unison. However, Yi Xian's expression was extraordinarily calm, and he slowly closed his eyes. When the Dao validation powerhouses arrived before him, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Die! As soon as he spoke, he suddenly clenched his fists, crisscrossed his arms, and then held them horizontally in front of him. In an instant, rumble! A destructive force suddenly erupted from Fengdu City, and the more than 20 Dao validation realm powerhouses, who were charging at Yi Xian, were pushed back nearly 10,000 feet. Not only that, but the entire Fengdu City began to crumble. Gehenna King and Wu Xian suddenly stopped, and then they turned to look at where Yi Xian stood with a trace of shock in their eyes. Gehenna King didn't attack Wu Xian again. Instead, he suddenly clenched his right hand. Suppress! As soon as he spoke, countless specters condensed in Necropolis, and the city that was on the verge of shattering gradually calmed down under the suppression of the specters. Meanwhile, Yi Xian was nowhere to be seen. He ran. Gehenna King's face became ferocious. Trying to escape? You're dreaming. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly closed his eyes, and a short moment later, he suddenly smashed his right fist towards the right. Yi Xian threw a punch. There was no disturbance in the space where his punch landed. However, on a hill thousands of miles away, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. His expression changed drastically, and he raised his arms to block the attack. Bang! a powerful force suddenly erupted from the space in front of him, and Yi Xian instantly retreated by over 1 kilometer. As soon as he stopped, the space in front of him suddenly trembled, and then Gehenna King and all the experts from the nether dimension appeared in front of him. Wu Xian appeared by Yi Xian's side as well. Gehenna King looked at Yi Xian. I underestimated you. Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and then he looked at Wu Xian in confusion. You're not going to escape? Wu Xian was expressionless. Do you think I can escape? As he said this, he paused for a moment before continuing. What was that move you used just now? It looked very powerful. Yi Xian blinked. It's a martial art I created. It's called Seeking Death. What do you think? Wu Xian looked at Yi Xian. The name is very domineering. But are you sure you created it yourself? Yi Xian nodded. I created it myself. Wu Xian shook his head. If you created it yourself, I'll eat 10 kilograms of dung, and it'll be diluted. Yi Xian was speechless. Wu Xian suddenly said, Kid, I don't think you're an ordinary person. Since you dared to steal the Yellow Spring holy water, you must have some trump card, right? Yi Xian nodded. I do. Wu Xian's eyes lit up. What trump card? Take it out and beat them to death. Yi Xian looked at Wu Xian. My helpers are in the world of the living. You help me stall them, and I'll go to the world of the living to get reinforcements. Then I'll come back to save you. What do you think? Wu Xian glanced at Gehenna King and the others. He thought for a moment before saying, I understand. Your trump card is that you go first, and I'll bring up the rear, right? Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1321. At this moment, there were already 36 Dao-proving experts on the hill. 36. Some of them were the guardians of the Grand Dao. Even Yi Xian felt like surrendering when he saw such a lineup. Wuxin suddenly said, Kid, do you really not have any trump cards? He still thought that Yi Xian had a trump card. A self-release expert coming to steal the Yellow Springs holy water? This shouldn't be just guts, right? He was gutsy in the past, but not to this extent. Trump card. King of Gehenna suddenly said with a smile. Yi Xian, actually, I'm also very curious. What made you dare to steal the Netherworld holy water? Yi Xian smiled. Gehenna King, you are the Fengdu City Lord. I heard that your strength is only second to the Lord of the Underworld. With that, he took out the Executing Heaven sword. I want to spar with you. Let's make this clear. We will fight one-on-one fair duel, no gang fights. Gehenna King looked at Yi Xian. Challenge me? Yi Xian nodded. One-on-one. Gehenna King nodded. All right. With that, the surrounding underworld experts retreated 3 kilometers away. The underworld believed in the strong. Gehenna King was challenged in public, so he had to accept because it would damage his dignity, especially when the other party was only at the self-release realm. Beside Yi Xian, Wuxin glanced at Yi Xian, and then retreated to the side. He didn't choose to run because at least 10 underworld experts had locked onto him. Opposite Yi Xian, Gehenna King was expressionless. Draw your sword. Yi Xian nodded and suddenly disappeared. Gehenna King looked at Yi Xian, who was charging at him with a calm expression. He didn't look down on him, because he wouldn't look down on any opponent. But he didn't pay too much attention either. The person in front of him wasn't enough for him to pay attention to. When Yi Xian appeared a few dozen feet in front of Gehenna King, a divine seal appeared between his brows. Samsara Divine Seal. The moment the divine seal of Samsara appeared, Yi Xian's aura skyrocketed. The Dao-proving realm. At this moment, Yi Xian used the Samsara God Seal, and the God Seal that Granny Meng had given him to reach the Dao Vindication realm. In addition, the 3 domains suppressed Gehenna King. Not only that, but the World Prism Pagoda also appeared above Gehenna King's head, and 9 different colored beams of light enveloped Gehenna King. Dao Law Suppression. Sword Domain Suppression. Proving one's own Dao. At this moment, Yi Xian directly used all his trump cards, because he knew that he only had one chance against Gehenna King. Slowly fight with the opponent, and then reveal his trump card when the fight reaches a certain point? That wouldn't do, because he wouldn't be able to outlast him. Moreover, that would waste too much time. What's the point of delaying a fight? If you want to fight, then fight with your life. At the instant that Yi Xian utilized all his trump cards, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings had changed, including the King of Hell. He hadn't imagined that Yi Xian was actually a guardian of the Grand Tao as well. Moreover, Yi Xian possessed 2 types of God seals. Most importantly, Yi Xian actually possessed 3 domains. Moreover, this attack of Yi Xian's was very unusual because it had surpassed the unrestrained sword heart. At this moment, Gehenna King knew that he'd actually underestimated Chen Shi when he said he didn't underestimate Chen Shi. He should have taken this young man seriously. Gehenna King didn't think too much about it and suddenly roared furiously. Myriadine converge. At this moment, he chose to defend, and he could only defend because he'd lost the initiative to attack. As soon as he finished speaking, boundless Yin souls suddenly appeared around Gehenna King, and countless Yin souls protected him. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword arrived. This attack could be said to be Yi Xian's strongest attack until now because he'd utilized the God Seal to temporarily improve his cultivation to the Tao-proving realm. His sword descended. Bang! Countless Yin souls let out shrill cries as a destructive force suddenly erupted. Even though Yi Xian's attack had annihilated countless Yin souls, it hadn't been able to destroy Gehenna King's Yin converge. Gehenna King gazed at Yi Xian and revealed a savage smile. This is the nether dimension. You can't destroy my Yin converge. Now it's time for you to die. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to attack. However, the execution heaven sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly transformed into the soul-suppressing sword. At the instant that the soul-suppressing sword appeared, the Yin souls around Gehenna King were completely absorbed. At this moment, Gehenna King's expression changed drastically. How could this be possible? In the next moment, the soul-suppressing sword stabbed into Gehenna King's head. Bang! In an instant, the Yin souls around Gehenna King were completely absorbed by the soul-suppressing sword. However, the soul-suppressing sword didn't absorb Gehenna King. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck. Gehenna King lost? How was this possible? Not far away, Wuxing glanced at Yi Xian and said softly, "This guy is too calculative." In fact, if Yi Xian had taken out the soul-suppressing sword from the beginning, Gehenna King would have been prepared. However, Yi Xian didn't. Yi Xian used the Execution Heaven Sword, and when the Execution Heaven Sword failed to destroy the Yin converge, everyone thought that Gehenna King was going to counterattack. At that time, even Wuxing thought that Yi Xian was finished. Once he caught Gehenna King off guard and failed to win, he would be counterattacked. However, no one expected that Yi Xian would take out the soul-suppressing sword at this time. The moment he took out the soul-suppressing sword happened to be when Gehenna King was the most relaxed. At this time, Yi Xian won with one strike. The soul-suppressing sword was suppressed inside Gehenna King's body. At this moment, Gehenna King didn't dare to move at all. If he moved, he would die. Not far away, Yi Xian took a deep breath. At this moment, he was very tired. That strike just now seemed to have drained all his strength. He knew very well that he only had one chance to strike. If he couldn't win with one strike, Gehenna King would counterattack. At that time, it would be very difficult for him to win unless Gehenna King made a huge mistake. Fortunately, Gehenna King didn't take him seriously. Yi Xian retracted his thoughts and put away the 2 God seals. It had to be said that the power of these 2 God seals was very tempting, but he still knew very well what he wanted. This kind of Tao validation was not true Tao validation. He wanted to rely on himself to achieve true Tao validation. Yi Xian looked at Gehenna King, who was not far away, and said with a smile, "Gehenna King, the road to the underworld is not easy. Please send us on our way." Gehenna King narrowed his eyes. "You want to take me hostage?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes. Do you have a problem with that?" Gehenna King sneered. At this moment, the soul-suppressing sword suddenly trembled violently. In an instant, Gehenna King's expression changed greatly, because he discovered that the sword was devouring his soul. Yi Xian looked at Gehenna King. "If you want to die, you can kill yourself now. This way, I can't take you hostage. Kill yourself." Gehenna King stared at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian smiled. It seems that you don't want to die. Then let's go. After saying that, he looked at Wuxin. Brother, let's go. Wuxin hesitated for a moment, and then followed Yi Xian. If he didn't follow Yi Xian, he really wouldn't be able to leave the underworld. At this moment, the underworld experts blocked in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. What, you don't care about Gehenna King's life? Inmu Chun, who was the leader, glanced coldly at Yi Xian, and then looked at Gehenna King. Gehenna King was silent. Inmu Chun fell silent as well when he saw this. He understood what Gehenna King meant. Yi Xian roared with laughter, and then he left with Gehenna King and Wuxin. As for Inmu Chun and the others, they didn't leave and followed closely behind. It didn't take long for Yi Xian's group of 3 to arrive at the Bridge of Helplessness. Yi Xian took a deep breath, because he was about to leave the underworld. But right at this moment, the Bridge of Helplessness suddenly trembled. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What's going on in the underworld? Yi Xian looked at Gehenna King, and Gehenna King frowned as well while a trace of bewilderment appeared in his eyes. It wasn't just Gehenna King. Even the other underworld experts were slightly bewildered, because they hadn't made a move. After all, Gehenna King's status in the underworld played a decisive role, so they didn't dare sacrifice him. It should be said that besides the Lord of Gehenna, no one dared to sacrifice Gehenna King. Right at this moment, Wuxin, who was by Yi Xian's side, suddenly said, Something isn't right. An expert is traversing through space and rushing over. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly. From the underworld? Wuxin shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian was just about to speak when the space in front of him suddenly split apart, and then a woman walked out from within it. When they saw this woman, all the experts of the Yin dimension were stunned. In the next moment, all of them hurriedly bowed respectfully. Sixth Princess. Gehenna King bowed slightly as well, and his eyes were filled with shock. The sixth princess is the most beloved daughter of the Lord of Doubting. What's she doing here? On the other hand, Yi Xian's face sank. This woman was none other than the woman who'd imprisoned the Permitha flower in the past. She'd actually come here herself. As soon as the sixth princess emerged, her gaze directly descended onto Yi Xian. Her eyes were filled with indifference, and it was like a god was looking at a mortal. Wuxin spoke in a low voice by Yi Xian's side. She wouldn't have come to look for trouble with you, right? Yi Xian smiled. What do you think? Wuxin's expression turned unsightly. The sixth princess suddenly walked towards Yi Xian. Don't worry. I won't kill you so quickly. I'll take my time. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. He who strikes first gains the advantage. Yi Xian still didn't hold back in this attack, and he immediately used the Samsara seal and the 3 sword domains. The Tao Validation Realm. The Sword Spirit. When the sword descended, it could destroy the world. However, Yi Xian's shocking attack was blocked by a ray of white light. The ray of white light forcefully blocked Yi Xian's sword. A wisp of ridicule appeared on the corners of the sixth princess's mouth. Kill me? I was born with a divine body, and I've long since surpassed the Tao Validation Realm. Even Tao breakers can't do anything to me. And you think you can? As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her right hand. Bang! Yi Xian's entire body was sent flying. The moment he was sent flying, countless mysterious black thunderbolts frantically bombarded Yi Xian. Under the bombardment of these black thunderbolts, Yi Xian's physical body actually began to crack inch by inch beside him. Wuxin's eyes were filled with horror. The legendary Tao Domination. Tao Domination? What was above the Tao Validation? There were 2 realms. One was the Tao Breaking Realm. Tao breakers were enemies of the Tao and broke the great Tao. The other was the Tao Domination. These people could truly control the great Tao after the Tao Validation, and such experts were as rare as the legendary Tao breakers. It's over. That was the only thought left in Wuxin's mind. Chapter 1322. As soon as he stopped, Yi Xian hurriedly circulated the energy of Buddhism within him. However, his energy was actually unable to destroy the black lightning. Yi Xian was horrified, and he hurriedly activated his sword domain. At the same time, an expanse of formidable sword intent suddenly enveloped his body. Bang! The lightning was slashed into pieces by his sword domain and sword intent. At this moment, his entire body was covered in injuries. What formidable strength! Yi Xian raised his head and gazed at the sixth princess with a solemn expression on his face. He's even stronger than the king of hell. The sixth princess gazed at Yi Xian from afar. He's not that weak. But now this is interesting. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and a whip suddenly appeared there. The whip seemed to be condensed from lightning. No, it was condensed from lightning. The sixth princess walked slowly towards Yi Xian. This is the God-striking whip, and it specializes in striking those with formidable bodies. I hope you'll be able to endure a few more strikes. As she spoke, she was about to attack. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! A strand of sword light flashed through the battlefield. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of the sixth princess' mouth. She waved her hand lightly, and then a bolt of lightning flashed. Bang! The lightning flickered while the heavens and the earth shook. The bolt of lightning had just come into contact with the ray of light when it was instantly shattered. But right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of the sixth princess, and he stabbed his sword towards the center of the sixth princess' forehead. However, the sixth princess didn't dodge at all, and she just allowed Yi Xian's sword to stab towards her. When Yi Xian's sword was just half an inch away from the center of the sixth princess' forehead, it was stopped by an invisible force. The sixth princess gazed at Yi Xian and ridiculed. Do you know what an innate divine body is? It's because I'm protected by the gods. Not to mention a tiny swordsman like you. Even if all the swordsmen in the world converged together, they wouldn't be able to harm me. How can a mortal sword harm a deity? With that, she suddenly lashed out with her whip. This time, Yi Xian was already mentally prepared. The moment the sixth princess lashed out with her whip, he had already retreated hundreds of feet. However, as soon as he stopped, the space around him suddenly collapsed. Boom! Yi Xian retreated several thousand feet, and the space he was originally in had turned into a pool of lightning. At this moment, the sixth princess suddenly waved her hand, and the space in front of Yi Xian was suddenly torn apart by a black bolt of lightning. Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and he slashed down with his sword. Boom! A wave of sword radiance and lightning abruptly broke out, while Yi Xian instantly retreated. While he was retreating, countless bolts of lightning shot towards him like flying swords. Every bolt of lightning contained a power that could destroy heaven and earth. It was obvious that the sixth princess wanted to destroy Yi Xian's body. After Yi Xian stopped, he suddenly clenched his fists, and then held them horizontally in front of him. Die! A formidable force suddenly erupted in front of Yi Xian. Rumble! In an instant, the entire hill was transformed into ash. Moreover, the bolts of lightning had vanished. At the same time, the experts of the netherworld in the surroundings were shaken to the point of retreating repeatedly. However, the sixth princess didn't take a single step back, and the force vanished without a trace as soon as it arrived in front of her. The sixth princess gazed at Yi Xian. In the next moment, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and he roared furiously, "Suppress!" Bang! The sword domain suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Meanwhile, a bolt of lightning suddenly tore through the sword domain, and Yi Xian's countenance instantly turned ghastly pale. Meanwhile, the sixth princess was already within Yi Xian's sword domain. She laughed coldly as she suddenly clenched her right hand tightly. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning condensed in her palm. Yi Xian was shocked, and he hurriedly withdrew his sword domain. He was just about to retreat when the sixth princess appeared in front of him. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of her mouth when she noticed the trace of terror in Yi Xian's eyes. You finally know about space? Aren't you? Right at this moment, the sixth princess's voice stopped abruptly, because an illusory Xiaota had suddenly appeared above her. The World Prism Pagoda. Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously. Dao Law's return. Bang! The World Prism Pagoda shook violently. In the next moment, 9 beams of energy that could obliterate the heavens and the earth suddenly erupted from within the pagoda and enveloped the sixth princess. The sixth princess' eyes narrowed slightly, and then she suddenly relaxed her palm, causing countless bolts of lightning to shoot into the sky. However, the bolts of lightning weren't able to shatter the energy of the World Prison Pagoda. Above the sixth princess's head, a blood-red prisoner character gradually appeared. A trace of uneasiness arose in the sixth princess' heart, and she was about to attack again. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly clenched his fists and smashed them forward. Die! Dao Scripture Martial Arts. As these two punches blasted out, a destructive force erupted from Yi Xian's fists. However, it was blocked by a white light. However, at this moment, the white light gradually became illusory. Because he still had the power of the Dao laws of the Prison Pagoda, Yi Xian roared, "Kill!" As soon as he finished speaking, the sword spirit suddenly flew out from his waist, and then it slashed down in a straight line. The sword slashed at the white light. Boom! The white light instantly shattered. Yi Xian hurriedly took a step forward and punched the sixth princess in the face. Bang! The sixth princess retreated immediately. It wasn't that she didn't want to dodge that punch, but she couldn't, because she noticed that Xiao Ta was suppressing her strength. As she retreated, the World Prison Pagoda remained above her head. Moreover, the prisoner character above her head was growing redder. God imprisonment. At this moment, the World Prison Pagoda and the 9 Dao laws had actually forcefully suppressed the sixth princess. Of course, this was an opportunity that the sixth princess had given her. If she hadn't underestimated Yi Xian, she wouldn't have been able to rely on the World Prison Pagoda at all. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of the sixth princess, and her peerlessly beautiful face suddenly became ferocious. And Yi Xian didn't punch this time, and he slashed his sword at the sixth princess's head instead. Bang! The sixth princess's body suddenly trembled violently, and then it became illusory. However, Yi Xian's hair was turning white at a visible speed. With his current strength, he was actually able to control the World Prison Pagoda. However, that depended on the person he was dealing with. The sixth princess's strength far exceeded his own. It could be said that he wasn't suffering from the backlash of the World Prison Pagoda. He was suffering from the sixth princess's strength. I must kill this woman. A trace of ghastly killing intent flashed through Yi Xian's eyes, and then he suddenly slashed his sword at the sixth princess once more. At the instant he swung his sword, even his body became slightly illusory. Just as the sword was about to strike the sixth princess' head, a powerful force suddenly flashed across the battlefield. In the next moment, a black chess piece suddenly struck Yi Xian's sword. Bang! In an instant, Yi Xian was blasted flying along with his sword. At the same time, the energy of the 9 Dao laws that imprisoned the sixth princess had vanished into thin air, and the World Prison Pagoda had been heavily damaged. The sixth princess had returned to normal. Not far away, Wu Xian turned his head to look, and saw a middle-aged man slowly walking over from a few hundred feet to his right. The middle-aged man wore a black robe, and on his robe, there was a picture of a malevolent ghost, and in his hand, there was a horsetail whisk. The Netherworld Emperor, the leader of the ghost emperors of the 10 directions. Behind the Netherworld Emperor were 9 other people, and these 9 people were the other ghost emperors of the 9 directions. At the side, Wuxing was silent. At least 70 to 80% of the experts of the underworld had arrived. This time, it's really over. Wuxing sighed softly, and he glanced at Yi Xian in the distance. In the beginning, he had hated Yi Xian a little, but now, this fellow's fate would probably be even worse than his. After all, the doubting sixth princess's hatred for Yi Xian was not ordinary. In the distance, Yi Xian took a deep breath. This time, not only had his hair turned white, but even his face had aged. Yi Xian was somewhat unwilling. He was so close just now. Just a little bit more, and he could have killed that woman. Damn, this underworld is playing gang fights. At this time, Wuxing suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side, and he looked at Yi Xian. You're called Yi Xian? Yi Xian looked at Wuxing and grinned. Sorry, I got you into trouble too. Wuxing shook his head. Forget it. I think this is fate. Once, I also thought that I could control my own fate. But now it seems that I didn't otherwise. Why didn't I predict that I would encounter a scammer like you? Yi Xian. Wuxin also lay down beside Yi Xian. I also gave up resisting. 37 Dao confirming experts, I don't want to fight. And I can't beat them. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian and smiled. I may die a little easier, but it's different for you. This underworld isn't an ordinary place. When it comes to torturing people, it's definitely the best in the universe. You must be mentally prepared. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Are you gloating? Wuxin laughed. To be honest, I'm still a little angry. You really made me suffer too much. Yi Xian. At this moment, the sixth princess suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked down at Yi Xian and was about to speak, but Yi Xian suddenly leaped up, and under everyone's astonished gazes, Yi Xian directly hugged the sixth princess, and then suddenly stabbed the sixth princess from the back. This sword he didn't hold back, and he used all the strength in his body. The sword pierced through the sixth princess's body, and also through his body. Everyone in the field was shocked. At this moment, the sixth princess punched Yi Xian's chest. Pfft! Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body was blasted flying. At the side, Wuxin blinked, and then said, This brother is a ruthless person. Should I resist a little as well? In the distance, the sixth princess suddenly roared furiously. Damned ant, I'm going to skin you and extract your soul. I'm going to make you suffer for eternity. At this moment, the entire underworld could hear the sixth princess roar. On the ground, Yi Xian took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. He still wasn't able to kill that woman. That woman's physique wasn't simple, but she didn't feel good either, because he noticed that something was quickly flowing out of her body. In a certain hall, Xidagarba put his palms together and sighed softly. He didn't choose to attack. He had anticipated this outcome when Yi Xian saved the equinox flower. Therefore, he chose to call it quits with Yi Xian. They did not owe each other anything. On the other side, Ain shook his head in silence. He didn't choose to attack either. Attacking meant being stained with karma, and also offending the doubting sixth princess. Offending the doubting sixth princess for a mere Yi Xian? It wasn't worth it. In the fifth dimension, somewhere in the starry sky, Moon Yinyan sat in the middle of the starry sky, thinking about something. At this time, Yi Jiming appeared beside Moon Yinyan and said anxiously, He's in the underworld. Moon Yinyan looked at Yi Jiming, but didn't say anything. Seeing Moon Yinyan's indifference, Yi Jiming said angrily, He's in the underworld in danger. Moon Yinyan shook his head and smiled. I've taught him so much, but he's still as childish as a child. Greed overestimating himself. I told him that even I don't want to provoke the underworld, but he still went for that Tao scripture. I told him to act according to his capabilities, but what did he do? He ignored my words and went to the underworld for that Tao scripture. This isn't just stupid, it's also ignorant and childish. Even if I save him today, he'll still be this stupid and childish in the future. Fine. I'll just treat it as Moon Yinyan misjudged him. After saying that, she stood up and left, her eyes filled with undisguised disappointment. Chapter 1323. He's not after the Tao scripture. Yi Jiming's voice sounded from behind Moon Yinyan. Moon Yinyan stopped and turned to look at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming opened her palm, revealing a green bottle. Moon Yinyan frowned. Yellow Springs holy water? Yi Jiming looked at Moon Yinyan. He's not going to the nether for the Tao scripture, but for the Yellow Springs holy water. Moon Yinyan looked at Yi Jiming. What do you mean? Yi Jiming walked to Moon Yinyan. He's doing it for you. Moon Yinyan frowned. For me? Yi Jiming looked at Moon Yinyan. He knows that you're injured. He thinks that there must be something wrong with your soul. So he asked me to bring him to the nether. Do you know how much he sacrificed to get the Yellow Springs holy water? Moon Yinyan was silent. Yi Jiming hurriedly explained. Gradually, Moon Yinyan's right hand clenched tightly, and her cold expression gradually softened. Especially when she heard that Yi Xian had entered the Yellow Springs River in order to get the Yellow Springs holy water. She clenched her right hand. How much pain would his body and soul suffer if he couldn't use his strength to resist the corrosive power of the Yellow Springs holy water? Yi Jiming suddenly said, He's an idiot. The biggest idiot in the world. Mu Ninian replied softly. He is. Yi Jiming glanced at Mu Ninian. Just as he was about to speak, Mu Ninian opened her palm, and a sword appeared in it. In the next instant she slashed out with her sword. As the sword slashed out, space split apart, and a pitch-black spatial crack appeared in front of the two girls. When Yi Jiming saw the spatial crack, his expression changed drastically. This is the path to the underworld. Slashing open the path to the nether. How terrifying was that? Yi Jiming looked at Mu Ninian, as though she was looking at a monster. Her hands were trembling. Just how strong was Mu Ninian? The Yang world and the Yang world were guarded by the Dao world. Under normal circumstances, if one wanted to go to the Yang world, he had to go to the intersection of the Yang world and the Yang world, and enter the Yang world from there. However, there was another way, and that was to cut open the path to the netherworld. How difficult would that be? Not only did he have to split open the Yang realm's universe barrier, he also had to split open the Yang realm's universe barrier. Most importantly, he had to be able to break the power of the Dao realm. In the instant that Mu Ninian cleaved open the path to the underworld, Mu Xing suddenly looked up into the sky from a faraway wasteland. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Who is it? The underworld. Yi Xian lay on the ground. At this moment, he had no strength at all. In the distance, the sixth princess was staring at Yi Xian with hatred. She did not expect that she would be injured by a mortal. Or rather, she was almost killed by a mortal. This was undoubtedly an extraordinary humiliation to her. The sixth princess stared at Yi Xian. I will let your soul suffer all the torture in the world of the underworld. Damn it. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly sat up on the ground and looked at Wuxin. Brother, help me up. I can still fight. Everyone was speechless. Wuxin hesitated for a moment and then said, Brother, you really have guts. As he said that, he helped Yi Xian up. Yi Xian took a deep breath. At the moment, he could not even stand steadily. Wuxin helped Yi Xian. He hesitated for a moment and then said, Brother, do you really want to fight? Yi Xian nodded and grinned. How can I, a swordsman, sit and wait for death? Even if I die, I will fight to the death. Wuxin looked at Yi Xian and gave him a thumbs up. You really have guts. I won't wait to die either. Even if I die, I will drag someone down with me. Yi Xian laughed and then said, Brother, step aside. I'm going to use my ultimate move. Wuxin nodded quickly. Okay, brother, be careful. I will cheer you on from the side. If you die, I will immediately come to accompany you. I won't be able to live today anyway. As for the debt of you tricking me, I will settle it with you in my next life. As he said that, he retreated to the side. Yi Xian looked at the sixth princess in the distance and smiled sinisterly. Didn't you want to torture me? I am here now. Come over. The sixth princess smiled coldly. I like people with tough bones like you. This kind of torture is more interesting. As she said that, she opened her palm. In an instant, a bolt of lightning condensed. The next moment, this bolt of lightning swept towards Yi Xian with a destructive force. Everywhere the lightning passed, the space exploded inch by inch. It was incomparably terrifying. In the field, everyone was looking at Yi Xian. How would Yi Xian resist this force now? Yi Xian suddenly roared with laughter. And it was an extremely mad laughter. You can't survive if you don't go mad. Bring it on. Amidst Yi Xian's loud laughter, his head of white hair gradually turned blood red. When that bolt of lightning arrived in front of him, his eyes had already turned into a sea of blood. The energy of his bloodline. At this moment, an extremely terrifying killing intent and vicious energy suffused the surroundings. Yi Xian stabbed with his sword. The sword was a sword spirit, and it was a gorgeous red. As soon as he stabbed with his sword, the bolt of lightning was instantly blasted apart. After all, he was at the Dao validation realm right now. Coupled with the energy of his bloodline, how terrifying was this attack? Everyone present was stunned when they saw Yi Xian shatter that bolt of lightning with a single strike of his sword. This fellow actually still has combat strength? Wuxin was quite shocked as well. This brother is really ferocious. The sixth princess stared fixedly at Yi Xian from afar. An ant like you actually has such a bloodline. However, it's a waste to use it on you. I'll drain all your blood later. I presume it should be very nourishing." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! The space in front of Yi Xian was suddenly torn apart by a bolt of lightning. In the next moment, countless bolts of lightning suddenly appeared around Yi Xian, and they were like a net that enveloped down towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian took a step forward and slashed down with his sword. A sea of blood surged into the sky as he slashed with his sword. Bang! In an instant, the entire nether dimension trembled. Countless bolts of lightning and blood-red sword energy exploded madly in the surroundings, and strands of formidable force surged towards the surroundings like waves. At this moment, the entire nether dimension shook. Countless evil spirits looked towards the hill with astonishment in their eyes. A woman suddenly appeared on the other side of the hill. It was Ayin. Ayin looked at Yi Xian, who had activated the bloodline power in the distance, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. What a powerful bloodline power. Who the hell is this guy? Nanzong also appeared at the side. He also looked at Yi Xian with a trace of astonishment in his eyes. Yi Xian's strength was not weak, but it was not enough to impress him. What shocked him was Yi Xian's bloodline. This bloodline power was not simple at all. On the other side, the great Netherworld Emperor also frowned slightly. He looked at Gehenna Monarch, who he had just rescued, and asked, "Do you recognize this bloodline?" Gehenna Monarch shook his head. "I've never seen it before. It's not recorded in the history books." The great Netherworld Emperor said softly, "This person is not simple." Gehenna Monarch was expressionless. No matter how not simple, he must die today. The great Netherworld Emperor nodded. He could have offended anyone, but he had to offend the doubting sixth princess. After all, the sixth princess was born with a divine body. Since birth, she had been doted on by countless people, and her status was extremely noble. Although she was a little willful, she had the right to be willful. Yi Xian had dug his own grave by saving the red spider lilies. In the distance, Yi Xian was still fighting with the sixth princess. At this moment, Yi Xian had completely entered a state of madness. He did not want to lose his mind completely, but if he did not do so, he would not be able to fight. He had caught this woman off guard the previous 2 times. But this time, no matter how stupid she was, she would not underestimate him again. Therefore, he could only choose to enter a state of madness. When he chose to enter a state of madness, he no longer cared about anything else. Die in battle. This was the last thought he had after entering a state of madness. As the fight went on, the sixth princess's face became a little ugly. Although she was suppressing Yi Xian, she could not kill him. In fact, she was also a little shocked. Although Yi Xian was only 1 level lower than her, the difference between the Tao-proving realm and the Tao-controlling realm was like heaven and earth. The previous 2 times were because she had been careless, so she suffered a loss. But now, she wasn't careless in the slightest. However, she was unable to kill Yi Xian. Moreover, Yi Xian was actually becoming more and more courageous as the battle progressed. Moreover, Yi Xian's sword was very strange and ever-changing, and it contained some sort of grand Tao. She did not dare underestimate this sword in the slightest because this sword could kill her. After around 15 minutes, Yi Xian was no longer suppressed, and the 2 of them were evenly matched. The expressions of the experts from the netherworld in the distance became solemn when they witnessed this scene. They noticed that they'd severely underestimated this fellow from the Yang realm. Even Wang Chong of Hell had a solemn expression. In the beginning, he thought that he had been suppressed by Yi Xian because of his carelessness. But now it would seem like besides his carelessness, Yi Xian was very strong as well. To a certain extent, Yi Xian was on the same level as them. Suddenly, the sixth princess was blasted 50 kilometers away by Yi Xian's sword. After she stopped, she suddenly turned around to look at the Netherworld Emperor and the others. Attack! Wang Chong and the others were slightly stunned when they heard the sixth princess. In the next moment, he and the Netherworld Emperor vanished on the spot. Wu Xian flew into a rage when he saw this. What the fuck? You're so fucking shameless. I'll fight you to the death. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward. However, as soon as he attacked, several experts from the Netherworld obstructed his path. Wu Exine roared furiously. Don't be so shameless. Netherworld, don't be so shameless. In the distance, bang! An expanse of blood suddenly exploded. In the next moment, Yi Xian was blasted flying. As the Netherworld Emperor and the others attacked, Yi Xian was immediately defeated. Beating up the sixth princess was his limit. Yi Xian fell to the ground. His body split open, and blood splattered all over his body. At this moment, the sixth princess suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and sneered. Come, let me drain your blood first. Then, I'll place your soul in the 9 underworlds and let it burn forever. As soon as she finished speaking, she placed her right hand on Yi Xian's chest. In an instant, all the blood in Yi Xian's body trembled, and then left his body. Not far away, Ain turned to look at Nanzang. Nanzang put his palms together and remained silent. Ain also remained silent. If the two of them didn't attack, then Yi Xian's life would end here. At this moment, the space in the distance suddenly split open. In the next moment, a woman holding a longsword slowly walked out. Moon Yinyan. When Moon Yinyan saw Yi Xian's miserable state, she was slightly stunned. In the next moment, she disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the sixth princess's expression changed drastically. She was just about to resist when a sword suddenly pierced her chest and pushed her back 3,000 miles. Everyone present was horrified. Moon Yinyan walked to Yi Xian and squatted down. She used her right hand to gently wipe away the blood that flowed from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. She smiled. Don't be afraid. Sister Nian is here. Chapter 1324. Moon Yinyan placed her left hand on Yi Xian's chest. A powerful force slowly seeped into Yi Xian's body. Gradually, Yi Xian's bloodline power calmed down. After a while, Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. When he saw Moon Yinyan, he was stunned. Then he smiled bitterly. Sister Nian. Moon Yinyan smiled faintly. Do you feel better? Yi Xian shook his head. I've caused you trouble again. Moon Yinyan said softly. You're very silly. Yi Xian looked at Moon Yinyan. Moon Yinyan gently wiped the blood off Yi Xian's face. My injury can't be healed by the Yellow Springs holy water. Yi Xian frowned. Not even the Yellow Springs holy water? Moon Yinyan nodded. Of course not. Otherwise I would have come to rob it. Yi Xian quickly asked. What about that white guy's purple aura? Moon Yinyan shook her head. That purple aura is useful to me, but it can't heal my injury. Yi Xian still wanted to say something. Moon Yinyan smiled. My injury was caused by myself. No one can help me except myself. Yi Xian was about to speak. Suddenly, a hideous voice came from afar. Bitch! How dare you hurt me? Yi Xian and Moon Yinyan looked up. The sixth princess had returned. However, there was still a sword stuck in the sixth princess's chest. But she was still alive. It was as if some kind of power was protecting her. Next to the sixth princess, the Netherworld Emperor said, Sixth princess, this person is not simple. Sixth princess didn't care at all. She looked at Moon Yinyan with hatred and said crazily, Bitch you! Right at this time, Moon Yinyan suddenly disappeared. Not far away, the Netherworld Great Emperor's expression changed drastically. Princess, be careful. As he spoke, he was just about to attack, when Moon Yinyan had appeared in front of the sixth princess. The sixth princess's expression changed drastically, and she clenched her fists tightly. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning converged around her, and formed a powerful barrier of lightning. However, Moon Yinyan ignored the lightning, and grabbed the sixth princess by the throat. Boom! Those lightning bolts instantly disappeared without a trace. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck when they witnessed this scene. The sixth princess was a Dao Defense Realm expert. Although it was a little overpowered, it shouldn't be enough to defeat him in one move. The sixth princess was also in disbelief. She never thought that she would be defeated in a single move. At this moment Moon Yinyan laughed and said, Your mouth stinks. With that, she grabbed the sixth princess's mouth with both hands and tore it apart. Chi! Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the sixth princess' mouth was ripped open. Ah! A heart-wrenching shrill cry instantly resounded. At this moment, the sixth princess's extremely beautiful face had become extremely ferocious. After she tore apart the sixth princess' mouth, Moon Yin smashed her against the ground, and then she stomped her foot on the sixth princess' face. Moon Yin grinned, but it was a slightly ghastly smile. You drained him dry? What kind of stinking brother are you? The Netherworld Emperor spoke in a low voice. Who exactly are you? At this moment, the Netherworld Emperor had an extremely vigilant expression on his face, because this woman was truly too terrifying. Moon Yin gazed at the Netherworld Emperor. You're part of the reason why he's so heavily injured, right? The Netherworld Emperor's eyes narrowed slightly, and he didn't hesitate to clench his fists tightly. In an instant, countless spirits converged into his body, and then the space before him suddenly transformed into a deathly silent expanse. Moreover, the howls of countless spirits resounded throughout this deathly silent expanse. At this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly entered the deathly stillness. In the next moment, under everyone's shocked gazes, the ray of sword light tore the deathly stillness apart. Then, the ray of sword light pierced the Netherworld Emperor's forehead. Bang! The Netherworld Emperor's soul was obliterated. He was instantly killed with a single attack. At this moment, all the experts from the Nether Dimension were astounded, and they gazed at Moon Yin as if she was a monster. Who exactly is she? She's actually so terrifying. Moon Yin didn't attack again. She just held the sixth princess by her hair and walked slowly towards Yi Xian, who stood nearby. The sixth princess was being dragged like a piece of trash. When has the noble sixth princess ever suffered such humiliation? The sixth princess roared madly. However, Moon Yin paid no attention to her. She dragged the sixth princess over to Yi Xian and smiled. Kill her. Yi Xian picked up the sword spirit. Suddenly, Gehenna King spoke abruptly. Do you know who she is? Moon Yin gazed at Gehenna King and smiled. Who is she? Gehenna King spoke solemnly. She's the sixth princess that the Taoist ancestor dotes on the most. Doubting. Moon Yin blinked. So she's doubting. No wonder she's so arrogant. As she spoke, she looked at the sixth princess in front of her. The sixth princess glared at Moon Yin with hatred. My father won't let you off. Gehenna King shook his head and couldn't help but curse in his heart. Damn, isn't this woman too stupid? Even now, she still doesn't understand the situation? Big sister, the woman holding the sword in front of you is most likely a real Tao breaker. In front of such a strong person, shouldn't you restrain your bad temper? Moon Yin laughed. This is the first time I've seen such a stupid woman like you. After that, she looked at Yi Xian. Kill her. Yi Xian was about to make a move when Nanzang suddenly stepped forward and clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, please show mercy. Yi Xian looked at Nanzang. Nanzang said softly. Mr. Yi, have you ever thought that although you felt great when you swung your sword down, although you'll feel happy with this strike, you and the lady next to you will have endless trouble? Yi Xian was silent. Moon Yin gently stroked Yi Xian's cheek and smiled. Are you afraid? Yi Xian shook his head. I'm not afraid, but I don't want to cause trouble for you. He didn't forget that Moon Yin was injured. Now that the fifth dimension tribulation was about to arrive, if he killed this woman, doubting would target Moon Yin. In the distance, Nanzang said, Young Master Yi, doubting is not something the two of you can resist. Ain nodded. If you kill her, it's the same as provoking doubting. Moon Yin suddenly smiled. You too, when she wanted to kill my little brother. Why didn't you come out? Ain looked at Moon Yin. Your Excellency, we advised you not to kill her. It was for your own good. Moon Yin suddenly disappeared. In the next instant, a sword was pressed against Yin's forehead. Ain looked at Moon Yin and didn't resist, her expression calm. Moon Yin smiled. You came out to speak not for our own good, but to save this doubting sixth princess, so that doubting will owe you a favor, right? Ain was silent. Moon Yin suddenly slashed down. Chi! One of Yin's arms flew off. Ain frowned, her left hand slowly clenched. Moon Yin smiled. She lightly patted Yin's cheek with her sword. Spirit of the underworld. I don't blame you for not saving this little guy before. After all, you don't owe this little guy anything. There's no need to offend such a big power like doubting for a little guy. But now, you want to use him to make doubting owe you a favor. And you even say it's for our own good. Playing such petty tricks with me? As she said that, she waved her left hand, and a sword suddenly landed in her hand. Soul-suppressing sword. Seeing this, Yin's expression changed. Moon Yin smiled. If your sword absorbs the spirit of the underworld, it can go up another level. At this moment, Yin suddenly clenched her left hand, and in an instant, the entire underworld trembled. In an instant, the power of countless Yin spirits gathered here. Moon Yin chuckled and slashed forward. Chi. With this slash, all the Yin spirits in the world dispersed. In an instant, Yin's soul became illusory. Everyone's expression changed. This slash directly injured the source of the underworld. Yin stared at Moon Yin. I underestimated you. Moon Yin blinked. Do you think you can see through me now? With that, she stabbed soul-suppressing sword at Yin. At this moment, Yin suddenly looked at Yi Xian. If it wasn't for my help, you wouldn't have reached the Yellow Spring River. Yi Xian glanced at Yin, then at Moon Yin. Sister Nian, forget it. She helped me reach the Yellow Spring River. Moon Yin thought about it, then nodded and let go of Yin. You're even. With that, she looked at Yin, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. You're so stupid, using such a favor just like that. Yin's pupil shrank. You did it on purpose. Moon Yin smiled. Spirit of the underworld, I won't kill you this time. But next time you dare to scheme against this little guy, I will destroy your soul. This little guy can only be schemed against by me alone. With that, she turned to Nanzang. What are you looking at? Why aren't you scramming? Nanzang's expression changed slightly, but he didn't say anything. He put his palms together and quietly retreated. Moon Yin turned to Yi Xian, placed the sword in Yi Xian's hand, then pointed at Sixth Princess on the ground. Stab her to death. Yi Xian looked at Sixth Princess, who said fiercely, doubting. With that, Yi Xian suddenly said, doubting your grandmother. As he spoke, he held the sword with both hands and stabbed it towards Sixth Princess' chest. Right at this moment, a mysterious force suddenly appeared before Sixth Princess' chest, and Yi Xian's sword couldn't move an inch further. Space suddenly split open in the sky, and then an old man in a Taoist robe walked out from within. Daolord Qingming, one of the 4 great experts of the underworld. Moreover, Daolord Qingming was from Doubting. Moon Yin looked at Daolord Qingming and smiled without saying a word. Daolord Qingming gazed at Moon Yin with a vigilant expression. Daobreaker. Moon Yin didn't answer Daolord Qingming, and she looked at Yi Xian instead. She was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said, I understand. As soon as he finished speaking, he stabbed his sword into Sixth Princess' abdomen. Hiss! Blood sprayed. A powerful strand of sword intent raged madly within Sixth Princess' body. Sixth Princess was stunned by this scene, and then her voice trembled. You actually dared to kill me. You. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, does it hurt? Everyone was speechless. Daolord Qingming stared fixedly at Yi Xian and Moon Yin. Both of you are finished. P.S. I've already given up on monthly votes. I want to be an author with backbone, and I'll never bow down for monthly votes. Never. Chapter 1325. Kill. At first, Yi Xian did not want to kill, because he was afraid of causing trouble for Moon Yin. But then he changed his mind, because he realized that even if he did not kill her, would this woman let it go? This woman would never let this matter rest. Since that was the case, why not kill her? Killing one is one. After Yi Xian stabbed the Sixth Princess to death, he took out the soul-suppressing sword and stabbed it into the Sixth Princess' body. In an instant, the Sixth Princess' soul was absorbed completely. Seeing the Sixth Princess' soul being absorbed, the expressions of all the underworld powerhouses changed. Yi Xian really killed the doubting Sixth Princess. Not only did he kill her, but he also absorbed her soul. This was not an ordinary kind of ruthless move. Not far away, Gehenna King glanced at Moon Yin and did not say anything. At this time, he did not dare to say anything. Was this woman in front of him confident? Or did she not understand doubting at all? It should be said that it was both. If this woman understood doubting, perhaps she would not have done things so ruthlessly. No matter what, doubting would definitely not let this matter go. However, this was not the end. Moon Yinyan looked at Dao Lord Qing Ming, who said softly, "You are very brave. I hope you do not regret it." After saying that, he gradually became illusory. He did not choose to make a move, because he was not confident that he could win. Moreover, there was no need to make a move. Doubting would naturally have someone to deal with this woman. What he needed to do now was to inform Doubting. Beside Moon Yinyan, Yi Xian said in a low voice, "He should have gone to call for help." Moon Yinyan nodded and smiled. "I deliberately let him go." Yi Xian glanced at Moon Yinyan. "Sister Nian, is Doubting very powerful?" Moon Yinyan laughed. "It's just so. Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, Moon Yinyan glanced at Yi Xian. Right now, Yi Xian had a head full of white hair, his face was old, and his body was broken into pieces. He was as miserable as one could imagine. Moon Yinyan gently stroked Yi Xian's snow-white hair and softly said, "You are so silly." As she spoke, she gazed at the experts from the nether dimension, and then she opened her palm, and a sword appeared there. The expressions of all the experts from the Yin dimension changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. At this moment, Moon Yinyan suddenly looked up and saw a middle-aged man suddenly appear in the sky above Necropolis. In the next moment, the middle-aged man appeared in front of Moon Yinyan. When they saw this person, all the experts of the Yin dimension hurriedly bowed respectfully. "Master of Yin." The middle-aged man in front of him was the Lord of the Underworld. Yin Master glanced at Yi Xian, and then he gazed at Moon Yinyan. "All of you can leave." The experts of the Yin dimension exchanged glances when they heard this. "We're letting Yi Xian go just like that." Moon Yinyan smiled. "I don't want to leave right now." Yin Master gazed at Moon Yinyan. "The Doubting's forces will arrive in an hour at most." Moon Yinyan nodded. "I'll wait for them here." Yin Master fell silent. Right at this moment, the sword in Moon Yinyan's hand suddenly flew out, and then numerous heads flew up into the air. Yin Master frowned slightly, and then he opened his palm. In an instant, a black iron chain locked down that ray of light. Yin Master gazed at Moon Yinyan. "If both of you leave now, then my nether dimension won't interfere in the matter between both of you and the Doubting." Moon Yinyan suddenly pressed his fingers together and pointed forward. Bang! The imprisoned ray of light suddenly trembled violently, and then the black iron chain was slashed apart. The ray of light shot straight towards the Lord of the Underworld. The Lord of the Underworld frowned slightly, and then he pressed his palm forward lightly. As soon as he did so, countless strands of Yin energy and death energy instantly converged within his palm. The sword arrived. Bang! Under the astounded gazes of everyone, the Lord of the Underworld instantly retreated explosively by 3 kilometers. He'd repulsed the Lord of the Underworld with a single strike of his sword. Moon Yinyan gazed at Yi Xian and grinned. "Anyone who injures you here must die." As soon as she finished speaking, her expression suddenly became slightly savage. In the next moment, she suddenly vanished on the spot with her sword in hand. And then her sword instantly pierced through a Dao-proving realm expert of the Underworld. This expert hadn't even been able to react to what had happened. After this expert of the Underworld was killed, Moon Yinyan appeared in front of another expert of the Underworld, and then a ray of light flashed as the head of a spirit flew into the air. In the distance, the Lord of the Underworld's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly spread open his right hand. In the next moment, he suddenly clenched it tightly and smashed his fist forward. A formidable black-colored fist swept through the surroundings. Countless vengeful spirits and evil spirits roared within this black fist. In the distance, Moon Yinyan suddenly stopped, and she didn't even turn around before she stabbed backwards with her sword. Bang! The black fist was directly forced to stop, and then it shattered into pieces in the next moment. Moon Yinyan slashed with her sword while carrying the Lord of the Underworld on her back. Hiss! A strand of sword energy tore through the sky. The Lord of the Underworld's pupils constricted, and he raised his arm horizontally to block it. Bang! The Lord of the Underworld instantly retreated explosively by another 3 kilometers. When he stopped, over 30 Dao-proving realm experts in the distant horizon had been annihilated. Even Ghost Emperor 10 Directions had been annihilated. All of them had been killed by a single sword strike. Just a single sword strike. Something worthy of mentioning was that she used the soul suppression sword. So the soul of every single expert of the underworld she killed would be absorbed by the soul suppression sword. On the other side, Wuxin gazed at Mu Nianyan while he gulped. And then he walked over to Yi Xian's side and said, "My God! Brother, this big sister of yours is too ferocious. Does she lack a little brother? Why don't I call her big sister as well?" Yi Xian blinked, and then he patted Wuxin lightly on the shoulder. "If you recognize me as your big brother, then you'll be my little brother. Do you understand what I mean?" Wuxin shook his head. "I'm older than you. Just recognize me as your big brother." Yi Xian gazed at Wuxin. "Are you sure?" Wuxin's eyelids twitched. "I'm not sure. Let me think about it." He was slightly afraid when he saw the expression on Yi Xian's face. Damn it! This fellow is someone who doesn't pay with his life. Become his big brother? I'm afraid I'll be tricked to death. Yi Xian was about to speak when Mu Nianyan suddenly appeared in front of him. She handed the soul suppression sword to Yi Xian. "This sword will become stronger." Yi Xian was silent. In fact, his heart was also unusually calm at this moment. In a short period of time, Mu Nianyan had killed over 30 Dao validation experts. How terrifying was that? Moreover, it was under the circumstances that the Lord of the Underworld had made a move. Yi Xian took the soul suppression sword and then said, "Big Sister Nian, how strong are you?" Mu Nianyan smiled slightly. "Not very strong. At least, I can't beat that Qing of yours." Yi Xian almost fainted. Qing. Big Sister Nian was going against Qing. However, Yi Xian suddenly realized something. Big Sister Nian was so terrifying, but she still couldn't beat Qing. How strong was Qing? Yi Xian couldn't imagine it. At this moment, Mu Nianyan suddenly said, "Open your mouth." Yi Xian instinctively opened his mouth. Mu Nianyan took out a green bottle and opened it. Then she poured all the Yellow Springs holy water into Yi Xian's mouth. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. He was about to spit it out when Mu Nianyan glared at him. "Swallow it." Yi Xian smiled bitterly and didn't swallow it. Mu Nianyan shook her head. "This Yellow Springs holy water is useless to me." Yi Xian frowned slightly. At this moment, Mu Nianyan pointed a finger at his chest, and the netherworld holy water in Yi Xian's mouth was instantly swallowed. Yi Xian asked in a low voice, "Big Sister Nian, what injury are you suffering from?" Mu Nianyan smiled. "I'm not suffering from injury, but a responsibility. And this responsibility has trapped me." Yi Xian wanted to ask more, but Mu Nianyan suddenly smiled. "Don't ask. You'll know soon enough." Yi Xian was silent. Mu Nianyan looked around and said softly, "Do you remember what I told you? Even I don't want to provoke the underworld." Yi Xian nodded. "I'm sorry." Mu Nianyan smiled. "When I first heard that you came to the underworld, I was very, very disappointed. I thought you had nothing to fear. That's why you dared to come to the underworld. But I didn't expect you to come for me." At this point, she looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Although you came for me, I still have to say that you're really stupid." Yi Xian nodded. "I just wanted to do something for you." Mu Nianyan chuckled. "Fool, do you know that if I was a step late, you would have lost your life?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I could have left really, but I didn't expect that woman to suddenly come. If it wasn't for doubting that woman, he really would have left." Mu Nianyan looked at Yi Xian. "I chose you and helped you because I wanted to make use of you. Do you understand?" Yi Xian was silent. Mu Nianyan asked again, "Is it worth risking your life for someone who wants to use you?" Yi Xian looked at Mu Nianyan and smiled. "Big Sister Nian. Big Sister Nian." This Big Sister Nian was better than 1,000 words. Mu Nianyan suddenly shook her head and smiled. "You," as she said, she gently rubbed Yi Xian's head. "You look really ugly now. Quickly heal your injuries and restore your original appearance." Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and began to heal his injuries. At this time, Wu Xian hurriedly said, "Big sister, do you still need a younger brother?" Moon Yinyan glanced at Wu Xian. In the next moment, she waved her right hand. Bang! Wu Xian was directly thrown hundreds of feet away, and finally fell heavily to the ground. Yi Xian. On the ground, Wu Xian wailed. Why is this? In the distance, the Lord of Underworld suddenly said, "Fifth dimension Tendo. Is it worth it to do this for a human?" Obviously, he already knew Moon Yinyan's identity. Moon Yinyan looked at the Lord of Underworld. The Lord of Underworld said, "You should know how powerful doubting is." Moon Yinyan smiled and said, "I don't care. There are actually very few things that I care about. There used to be only one, but now there is one more. One is the universe that I protect, and the other is this little guy." The Lord of Underworld said softly, "I wish you good luck." After saying that, he slowly retreated. At this time, the sky suddenly cracked open. The next moment, an extremely powerful aura suddenly swept out from the cracked space. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression changed. He was about to get up when Moon Yinyan suddenly said, "Heal your injuries." Yi Xian looked at Moon Yinyan. Moon Yinyan picked up Yi Xian's soul-suppressing sword. She looked at Yi Xian, and the corners of her mouth slightly raised. There are only 3 people who can kill Sister Nian. Unfortunately, all 3 of them are with you. Sister Nian is very cunning, right? Hehe. Yi Xian did not laugh because he found that there was clearly something wrong with Moon Yinyan's body. Her body was illusory. Yi Xian forcibly stood up and walked to Moon Yinyan's side. Then, she grabbed Moon Yinyan's hand and grinned. Advance and retreat together, live and die together. Chapter 1326. Doubting. Yi Xian didn't know how strong doubting was, but he knew that it was definitely very strong, at least above the underworld. Sister Nian might be able to suppress the underworld, but she might not be able to suppress doubting, especially when Sister Nian was still injured. But no matter what this time, the siblings would advance and retreat together, and they would live and die together. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Moon Yinyan glanced at him, but didn't say anything. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in the sky. He wore a dark white robe, and there was a domineering aura between his brows. In his hand, he held a meter-long golden whip. The golden whip flickered with golden light, and one could tell that it wasn't an ordinary item at first glance. When this middle-aged man appeared, the gloomy aura of death around him actually retreated slowly, not daring to approach him. At this moment, Wu Xian walked to Yi Xian's side and said in a deep voice, "This is one of the 4 great divine generals of doubting, Hung Tianwu." Yi Xian glanced at Wu Xian. "There are 3 more?" Wu Xian nodded. Yi Xian fell silent. Wu Xian said in a deep voice, "This person isn't simple." It should be said that every divine general isn't simple, because they walked out of the purgatory of death step by step. Do you know about the purgatory of death? It's an extremely terrifying battlefield. Every once in a while, the doubting and the doubtum will fight there, and it's extremely tragic. It can be said that these divine generals have been fighting their entire lives. In their world, it's all about fighting. Yi Xian raised his head to look at Hung Tianwu, and he suddenly realized why the gloomy aura of death didn't dare to approach him. Because Hung Tianwu had an extremely terrifying murderous aura. How many people would he have to kill to form such a murderous aura? In terms of temperament, this divine general was many times stronger than the 6th princess. Could Nian Nian defeat him? Yi Xian looked at Moon Yinyan with a trace of worry in his eyes. In the sky, Hung Tianwu looked down at Moon Yinyan and said, "I never thought that a little Tendo could cultivate to this level." Moon Yinyan laughed. "You came alone?" Hung Tianwu proudly smiled. "Is it not enough?" As soon as he finished speaking, the golden whip in his hand suddenly trembled violently. In an instant, a boundless golden light suddenly covered the entire sky. Under the golden light, the Yin Qi and Death Qi in the surroundings instantly disappeared without a trace. In the center of the golden light, Hung Tianwu held the golden whip with one hand and looked like a god of war. Below, Moon Yinyan had his left hand behind his back and his right hand holding a sword. His expression was calm. Compared to Hung Tianwu, Mu Niannian was like a small boat in the raging waves. He seemed so frail. In the sky, Hung Tianwu suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground. At this moment, that was the question in the hearts of everyone here. And it was the same question in Hung Tianwu's heart as well. That attack from before had instantly dispersed all his strength, and he didn't even have the chance to defend himself. An instant kill with a single attack. Even he hadn't imagined that he would be killed in an instant. After all, he'd used all his strength. Suddenly, a sword stabbed into the top of his head. The soul suppression sword. In the blink of an eye, the soul-suppressing sword had completely absorbed the remnant soul. In the sky, Mu Niannian opened her palm, and Hung Tianwu's golden whip fell into her grasp. She sized it up before she tapped it with her finger, and then the golden whip descended in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't take the golden whip, and he gazed at Mu Niannian instead. At this moment, Mu Niannian's countenance was slightly pale, and she was coughing. Mu Niannian grinned when she noticed Yi Xian's gaze. "I'm fine." As she spoke, she turned around to glance at the Lord of the Nether Dimension, and then she smiled. "I'm injured now. Moreover, it's quite severe. Do you intend to lend a hand? That's a good opportunity." The Lord of the Nether Dimension gazed at Mu Niannian in silence. Mu Niannian roared with laughter. "Since you're not going to lend a hand, then we'll be leaving." As soon as she finished speaking, she gazed at Yi Xian. "Let's go." Yi Xian nodded, and then he picked up the golden whip, and hurriedly followed by Mu Niannian's side. As if he'd thought of something, he suddenly gazed at Wu Xian. "Why aren't you leaving? Do you want to stay and eat?" Wu Xian shuddered when he heard this, and he hurriedly followed them. At this moment, no one in the Nether Dimension dared to stop them. Right at this moment, Mu Niannian suddenly stopped, and then she turned around to look at the Lord of the Nether Dimension and smiled. "Help me send a message to the doubting. Tell him to either send more or stronger forces next time." As soon as she finished speaking, she led Yi Xian and Wu Xian along as she vanished on the spot. The Lord of the Nether Dimension remained silent. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from his side. "I never expected that such an expert actually existed in the Yang Dimension." The person who spoke was Daolord Qingming. At this moment, he felt very fortunate that he hadn't attacked just now, otherwise, he would be the one dead. Actually, he was very shocked because a divine general had been instantly killed just like that. It was an instant kill. He could accept it if he'd won, but it was an instant kill, and it was completely different. Moreover, this divine general had experienced numerous battles, and both his combat awareness and strength were top-notch. However, he'd still been instantly killed. A single strike. After a long moment of silence, Qingming suddenly said, "I'm going to the doubting." The Lord of the Nether Dimension suddenly said, "Will the doubting continue sending forces?" Qingming spoke softly. "They definitely will, because the identity of the sixth princess isn't simple at all. She isn't just the sixth princess of the doubting." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. The Lord of the Nether Dimension remained silent for a long time. Mu Niannian didn't bring Yi Xian directly back to the fifth dimension, and they arrived at the intersection of the Yang Dimension and the Yang Dimension instead. Mu Niannian glanced at the surroundings and said softly, "Come out." As soon as she finished speaking, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Mu Niannian. It was Mu Sheng from the Dao world. Mu Sheng gazed at Mu Niannian. "It was you who forcefully opened the path between the Yang Dimension and the Nether Dimension." Mu Niannian suddenly said, "Ask the red spider lilies to come out." Yi Xian gazed at Mu Niannian. "Big sister Nian." Mu Niannian smiled. "Don't worry, I just want to see them." Mu Sheng didn't speak. The corners of Mu Niannian's mouth curled up slightly. "Do you want me to repeat myself?" Mu Sheng gazed at Mu Niannian. Meanwhile, a ray of red light suddenly appeared, and then Manju and Xiahua appeared in front of Yi Xian. Both of them glanced at Mu Niannian with fear in their eyes. Mu Niannian walked over to them, and she stared at them for a long time before she spoke softly. "Let's go." She turned around and left once she finished speaking. Yi Xian nodded lightly, and then he left with Wu Xian. Meanwhile, Manju spoke abruptly. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian turned around and gazed at Manju. Manju hesitated for a moment before she said, I'm sorry. Yi Xian smiled. It's my own choice. Also, both of you should live well. Don't let this lifetime down. He turned around and left once he finished speaking. In next to no time, Yi Xian's group of 3 vanished into the distance. Xiahua suddenly said, She tried to kill us just now. Manju nodded. Because of us, young Master Yi offended the entire doubting. This evil karma. Xiahua frowned slightly. But why did she give up? Manju shook her head. I don't know. At the end of the horizon, Yi Xian walked over to Mu Nianyan's side. Big Sister Nian. Mu Nianyan said softly. I just wanted to see if you were tainted by the doubting's karma because of yourself, or if it was done by someone else out of malice. Those 2 little girls were indeed treated unfairly. You saved them. Half of it was because of me, and the other half was because of your kindness. Speaking of this, she looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You can't blame others for this. Speaking of which, you offended the entire doubting because of these 2 sisters. Moreover, these 2 sisters won't bring you any benefits. Do you really think it's worth it? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, If people do things based on whether it's worth it or not, wouldn't it be too boring? Mu Nianyan was stunned, then gently rubbed Yi Xian's head with her right hand. Great kindness. At this time, her body suddenly became illusory. Yi Xian's face changed greatly. Big Sister Nian. Mu Nianyan smiled lightly. I won't die. Yi Xian grabbed Mu Nianyan's hand tightly. He said in a trembling voice, I want to find Qing. Can you help me find Qing? P.S. Thank you to all the readers who voted. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.